Holy shit.
Hey! Hello, everybody. Welcome to the final episode of Graphic Content 2016, where we talk about comics.
Press F to pay respect.
Press F.
Today we're going to be doing a ceremonial comic book burning and a Viking funeral for graphic content in which we're
burning the studio.
Yeah.
And we're shipping it off.
Yep. We're going to burn the whole thing down.
We didn't tell Zach or Rai about it.
No.
This is our plan. This is happening live.
Good luck stopping me.
Yeah. No,
That's all I have to say. Come at me, frail men. Come at me.
We spent last night rigging the studio with explosives.
Yes, explosives, and we prepared Molotov cocktails. It was really cute.
We like
matches.
Can you just throw us matches? We like to go out with a bang, and we won't let anybody stop us.
And we did it in our Christmas sweaters, and it was like there was like a fire. It was like a really nice Christmas time.
Yeah, it was.
Like,
it was fun.
Co-op, sort of craft making thing. It was really nice.
No fire?
No.
Uh-oh.
If there's a fire, here's a safety cup of water that I'm making sure doesn't get on your comics.
Oh, okay.
Just douse the fire in this.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me know.
I'll be sure to do that when hell freezes over.
Thanks, Rai, the fire safety guy. Yes. So this is Graphic Content. Thank you guys for tuning in. We are going to talk about comics, comic book news. We're going to talk about the finale of Vanquished.
My awesome Doctor Strange shirt.
I'm wearing my holiday
I
sweater.
like that. That's cute.
It's got a cat.
Oh my gosh,
And
that's
a
great.
little tank, and it's got shooting lasers.
That looks awesome.
It was the only non-denominational sweater I could find in the mall in Bellingham.
Really?
Yeah.
Well then.
And I like it's very soft too. It's very good.
That's good. That's good.
So yeah, we're gonna review some comics. We're also gonna do our comics picks of the year. We are getting rated.
By the Pit
Crusaders.
Hello,
What up, Pit
welcome,
Crew?
Raiders. How are you guys doing?
Welcome.
Fight the raid with your Star Wars blasters.
Welcome to Hyper RPG. This is a hyperactive, interactive, community-driven Twitch channel with a variety of content. This is graphic content where we talk about comics and comic book news. Today on the channel, we have Watching Paint Dry with Viking Last, where she's going to paint the mechs that are going to be destroyed on Friday. Then we've got Corporate Wars, quickly followed by Corporate Sins, where, MFEC is going to run through Cyber Seattle and try not to die. And then tonight we've got Honesty Hour with Zach and Mitch. And all of your questions about 2017 can continue to be answered there.
Oh, Paximal, thank you so much for the tip. Sad for the last graphic content for now, but excited to see Bronze and Scott on Open Legend in 2017. Yeah, I'm excited.
Thank you,
It's going to be
Paximal.
great. I'm sure it'll be wonderful.
We'll try to get those tip sounds on as soon as possible. We're of course running on we have the bones of a studio because we're working on the move. But we're doing our best.
This this studio is now like Hollow 40.
Subscriber.
Thank you, welcome to your Jimbo. What?
Money.
I was like, if the alert went through twice, I'm not dancing a second time. No.
No, thank you. Welcome to the Ojimbo. That means we are 4 subscribers away from giving away a free Steam key. We give away a free Steam key every time we get 4 subscribers on this channel, and that runs the day. We also give away a free Steam key if we get 50 followers in one day.
We have like a dreidel and stuff here.
Yeah, we got our little holiday setup. Thank you. There's another dreidel over here.
Yeah.
There you go.
Because that's more your tea, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, and look, here you go.
some
That's
Money.
Sad for the last graphic content for now, but excited to see Bronze and Scott on Open Legend in 2017. Thanks for a great year, Bronze and Scott.
You're so sweet.
Thank you so much.
We love you.
It's been a fun year.
We love you.
So let's get going then. Let's talk about some comic book news so we can get to our picks of the year.
Which is like really last minute, so I just swapped it together.
Yeah. They're gonna be.
I don't want to hear no shade about my picks because I came up with them in the
forget
span
things.
of driving here. So come at me, chat.
It's a good list,
all
though.
of you.
It's a good list. It's a good list.
Is it? I feel like it's too. There's too much image in that list, but
I don't. Too much for what?
it seems.
I got 2 DC books in mind. We each got 3.
I forced in one Marvel, but it's not like one of the main Marvel comics, so I didn't feel like Miss Marvel was as good this year as it was last year. So.
Didn't have like that one issue that broke out.
Nope. It was
Yeah.
actually the entire thing was kind of like meh, you know? It wasn't bad, but I mean like compared to last year's, it was so good.
Right.
But we'll see.
Hopefully it'll get better. Okay. Let's talk about news.
Let's talk about news.
This news is
controversial in here.
We're gonna get controversial real quick. This news is related to comic books because it
Prepare
happened.
your pistols, because you're about to be triggered. Does that work?
No, I think it's pretty good. I wasn't sure you were going with that.
Get
When you said
your
triggered, I was
little
like,
hyper
nice.
RPG
Some solid
pistols
wordplay.
ready
Finger guns,
because
pew pew. So
y'all gonna be triggered.
if you were on the internet yesterday, you found out that in the Overwatch tie-in comic, Blizzard announced or revealed that the character Tracer from Overwatch is gay, or at the
Yeah.
very least has a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Which I do not play Overwatch.
I don't either.
So I personally don't have a huge opinion on this. I think, I mean, I know there's a bunch of characters and one of them is gay, so I guess good first step. But personally, I'm just like selfishly excited that there's a bunch of people that are talking about a thing that happened in a comic book.
Yeah, which
Like,
is like
It's a comic tie-in that
that's
people
amazing.
read.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. Personally, I think, and I kind of talked to you about this before we started, I think that this is Blizzard kind of sticking it to the man, so to speak. There was this whole shitstorm earlier this year over the size and positioning and posing of Tracer's ass. And there was a lot of people that are like, keep it, she looks sexy. And there were a lot of people that are like, oh my God, like that's so sexual. And there was people like me in the middle who are like, is it really that bad to have really like attractive characters in the same game that you have really sort of like characters who don't fit into that meta? Characters like Mei, characters like Zarya who don't look like Tracer and Widowmaker. So why single those two out? So I feel like this is Blizzard saying like, haha, joke's on you. She's not fat material for you anyway. Cry nice big salty tears, neckbeards, because she's gay. And sure enough, it worked because people are like, oh my God, she can't be gay. I was like looking at screenshots from different forums of people saying like, my life is over. This is bullshit. Waifu doesn't love me. Waifu will never love me. And honestly, it's just so comical to me that people care. Like, I don't give a shit.
The thing that gets
I
me the
don't
most
care.
is that it's a multiplayer only game.
Yeah.
So like there's a narrative of these characters that has been created in like YouTube videos and shit, but like it's not even like it's a multiplayer only game. They're just avatars.
Yeah, and you never even like yeah.
Like
This
so
is
let the
League of-
fanfic do what it
This
wants.
is like League of Legends having lore. Like, yes, believe it or not, League of Legends had lore. Does anybody know what it is? No, nobody cares. Sorry if you're like one of 10 people out there who cared, but nobody fucking cares. So I'm like sitting here like, I don't give a shit about who Tracer ships and doesn't ship. I don't care. I don't care. But I think it does cast a light on kind of what our sort of like gaming. We were talking. This has been the overarching theme of this year, and that's why it's perfect that it culminates on the final episode of Graphic Content. It's been about these giant media stunts and how the sort of the Tumblr and the bloggers shape what direction we take characters and what direction we take comic book characters, because it's all about riling people up. And I feel like everything that is done these days is done to get a rise out of people.
Yeah.
Which
I
is
was
a very
thinking that
smart marketing strategy for
about
sure.
this like I, more so now than since the release, which I guess is true about everything. But like the hype for Overwatch has kind of died down recently,
A little
and
bit,
now
yeah.
all of a sudden people are going home for the holidays and seeing Overwatch on their news feeds and being like, oh, I should jump into Overwatch, play
Yeah.
some Overwatch, you know,
Yeah.
like. It's pretty good timing to be like, hey, go play more Overwatch and, you know, buy those purchasables that are on sale right now.
Yeah, I think I'm like the first person to say that representation is important and this and that. But I'm also the first person to say, you're right. In a game like Overwatch, does it really fucking matter? No, it really doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not a story-driven game.
Yeah, if she
and I
was
know
the
that's gonna
only-
upset people, and they're gonna be like, no, it's literally like a Team Fortress clone. Nobody
Yeah.
cares.
Yeah.
That if you cared so much about like lore and canon and immersion, look at the skins in that game. This game is meant, everything is meant to be kind of a joke. That's
Yeah.
why you have these over-the-top crazy skins. And I always had a bone to pick with this game because I always felt like it was a little low-key racist. But, you know, at the end of the day, they're just avatars, and who the hell cares?
It'd be interesting if she was like if everybody you could play as was a dude and she was like the only female character.
Right,
You know,
right.
but it's there's a whole cast of characters that are also like barely humanoid for a lot of them.
Right.
Like it's a whole it's a thing. I just hope this means people are going to be paying attention to comics more and more. It'd be amusing if like the digital comic all of a sudden like started getting all these big numbers, people started reading them because of it.
I hope.
I'm always excited for stuff like that.
That's the only reason I kind of even give a shit about this is because it's a comic book. Otherwise, I don't really care. I just feel like on the surface, they had an opportunity to make some really cool minority characters, and they chose to make like these really wide-sweeping stereotypes. And I'll always feel that way. You know, every time I hear that, let's break it down. He's got a boombox and rollerblades. I'm just like, this is so wrong to me. And I will never be okay.
Who is that? That's
a It's Lucio.
Boombox and
he
roller.
walks
Okay,
around with a boombox on his shoulder or whatever, and he's got rollerblades and dreads, and apparently he's from Brazil. So I'm like, okay, well that's not even really Brazilian culture. He looks like he's fresh out of Fresh Prince
I like
of
Bob
Bel
Marley.
Air.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, especially he looks right out of Fresh Prince of Bel Air. Yeah, he's like the the Jamaican GTA character.
Yeah.
That just like speaks
And
like
we were
gibberish.
talking about it on like this minority-driven podcast we used to do called Fat Kids Social Club, and in it, like we were all talking about how like they had one black character, this is what they did, and this and that, and someone's like, he's Brazilian, and I was just like, what? It was so strange to me, but anyways, that's a whole other conversation.
He is totally Jet Set Radio. He also
is Jet
reminds
Set
me
Radio,
of, you ever
but-
play the game Fusion Frenzy?
Yes.
Yeah, it reminds me
Yes.
of one of the Fusion Frenzy characters, the
Yeah.
green one, of course.
Yeah.
I
and
love
I mean,
that game.
I actually, I like that, yeah.
So yeah,
Is
okay.
Fresh Prince of Bel Air a race now? No, it's a stereotype. So that's why it was mentioned. You know, you can troll me in my chat, but you can't troll me here. 'Cause I will take you to tat. No, just kidding.
As if you won't do that in your chat.
Yeah, I will do it on my chat too.
All
Yeah,
right, what we
Lucio's
got
supposed to be a Brazilian music star. That's not what I see when I see that character.
No.
But you know, hey,
Wow.
it's fine.
Also about like, I remember hearing a lot of talk about like, oh, so-and-so is in this so-and-so's character. Like, first of all, they barely have characters, they're not narratives. And also like, nobody ever says, oh, these characters are like fun and cute and whatever, and they're just like murdering each other. We have all this conversation about like, oh my God forbid we show a little bit of ass in this thing, and it's like, these things are inherently based on violence, and I'm not one of those people who thinks that video games and violence are necessarily connected.
Yeah.
But I think that if we're going to grant the premise that it's okay for violent video games to exist, then we need to not be so freaked out about a little bit of cleavage, provided it's, you know, if it's, again, there's the whole, if it's the only woman, it becomes a problem,
like,
but...
we're of the same mind on that when it comes to comic books, too.
Yeah.
Because I'm okay with sexy comic book characters. You're okay with sexy comic book characters. We're both, like, we think that it's fine for those characters to exist. So it's kind of strange to, like, of course we're going to have the same views on video games and movies as well. I feel like with the way our society's going, we're gonna get to the point where every character looks like Captain Marvel, and that's it. Like, we're not gonna have anything outside of that because we're so terrified to have characters that show a little bit of skin or this and that, and it's kind of like depressing because in the name of not body shaming, we're basically body shaming people or comic books that are glorified to look a certain way. And I've talked about it, I think one of my first like guest appearances on this show, that for me comic books are our modern day mythology. And so just like, you know, we glorify Greek mythology and what those men looked like, I feel like it's okay to glorify comic book heroes and what they look like because this is our mythology.
And so, yeah, it's important to recognize the difference between, you know, the power fantasy and the realism. And that's Nightwing is just as much an unrealistic expectation for men as Captain Marvel is for women.
Yes, nobody looks like that.
But I mean, the problem is that that too much of our society is like, hey, women should look like Captain Marvel. There's way less men being told you should look like Nightwing.
We don't exist
but
in a
that doesn't
vacuum.
mean that we should blame Captain Marvel for that. Right? We should blame the people holding, like, if you hold all women up to the standard of Wonder Woman, that's your fault for thinking that people should be like your fictional fantasies.
Yes. And I think in the past it was a valid argument because in the past it was kind of like, oh, we only have 3 female comic book characters and they all like dress like Wonder Woman. There's nothing really wrong with Wonder Woman, but you know, she does show a little bit more skin and saying like, oh, they all look a certain way and they all dress a certain way. But nowadays we have a lot more female comic book characters than we do male. So do we really need to sit here and like nitpick and say like, oh, look at this, her tits are huge, look at that pose on the cover, it's way too, like, it's like, calm down.
And this is why
have several seats and drink several cups of tea and just channel your, like, you know, just.
This is why representation is important, right? Because the more women are in comics, the less the one woman who does this stands out as representing women in general.
Yes, and it's like the terrible Indian stereotype from the Deadpool film. I'm gonna bring it up. It is a comic book movie, so it's relevant. In Deadpool, I walked away from that movie with a really sick feeling in my stomach while everyone else enjoyed it because you had this Indian cab driver who like fucking triggered me because that's what I grew up with. That's the only Indian you saw in film, and to this day, Indians are like a funny, like they're comedic relief. And I think that with a lot of other races, if you were to make those same sort of like jokes, it would be considered terribly offensive. But when it's an Indian, it's okay because it's funny. And I saw that with Deadpool. It was just such a terrible, offensive stereotype. And it's like, do you know most doctors in America are Indian, but you didn't choose to go with that stereotype. You chose to go with the stereotype of Indian cab drivers with comical accents whose role is only for the white audience to laugh at them.
Yeah,
it hurts you on the inside because you're just like, I don't think I would have cared if there was other Indians in the movie. If there was other Indians in the MCU, we have literally like none. And literally zero, and we have a cab driver, and that's what you chose to go with. That's the problem. It's okay to make those jokes and have those things, I feel like, when you have more than one person, and I feel like it's the same thing with women, and I think that's why I'm okay with Tracer's ass in Overwatch, because there's so many other women in that game that don't look that way, and that don't dress a certain way, so it's okay.
Yeah, I think, like, we grew up we live here in the east side of Seattle, where there is actually a really big Indian population here. There's a big Indian American population, and a lot of them, it's because they work at Microsoft.
Yes.
Like, almost every professional Indian I know is an engineer.
And Miss Marvel isn't Indian, she's Pakistani. And you should read up on the terrible, tumultuous war between the two countries before you confuse the two. Honest mistake, but they're not the same. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's just I don't know. It's like if there's more there, then I feel like we can take more liberties with it.
Yeah.
Same thing. I feel the same way about Street Fighter. When people sit here and say like Street Fighter is ridiculous, I'm like, have you seen the men in that game? Mm-hmm. There is nobody with normal proportions in that game.
That's true. It's like, you know, I'm not often one to defend 90s art styles, and while they were super sexualized, something said about like Jim Lee especially, and even Rob Liefeld, like everything they drew was horribly unrealistic.
Yes.
You know, like literally barrel-chested men next to these women that are literally broken in half. Like everything was horribly impossible.
Right. Man, I just don't even. She's Scotch-Irish, just like me.
Yeah.
That's what I am. I'm Scotch-Irish.
So there you go,
First.
Ms. Marvel.
Well, no, you heard
Scotch-Irish superhero. You heard it here second.
Because
All right, next piece of news. There is a Ghostbusters annual coming out that is going to have a crossover between the original Ghostbusters and the new Ghostbusters.
Which is awesome.
I think that's fun. I'm not necessarily one of those people who is like treats Ghostbusters as crazy sacred. You know, when I heard there was a reboot, I was like, all right. I was nervous when they announced the reboot because I'm not one of those people that's like, Ghostbusters is so amazing. I think it's a great movie because I think those guys are hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
And so when they said out to the cast, I was like, all right, I'm definitely Ghostbusters. I think all those women are hilarious.
Yeah. I think it just had such a visceral reaction because it had an all-female cast, and I think that the feeling I was speaking about of feeling like everything is for a publicity stunt, I think at that time the entire like nerddom in general was feeling that way, was feeling like everything's done because of publicity. I think that's where the visceral reaction came from. I want to hope that is where the visceral reaction came from.
There is something to be said about, because I remember this happened a lot when the first trailer dropped, of course, right? It was like the least liked trailer on YouTube.
Yes.
And I think that there's something to be said about a lot of people think that things are being remade to be a stunt. There definitely was some sexism, but also, I think we forget when we talk about this, the first trailer was a bad trailer.
It really was.
It was just a bad trailer.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't necessarily funny. It didn't necessarily excite you about the movie. The second trailer was hilarious, and I was super excited about it.
Yeah.
Crud is right. The old Ghostbusters don't exist in the new Ghostbusters, but that's okay because
we can rewrite all that, right?
It's a brand new interdimensional meeting of the minds, is how this issue is described. So yeah, it's not going to break canon. It's just going to break universes. Because that's what comics do.
That's what comics do. I'm so used to it and so okay with it. I saw like a Star Trek Sinestro mashup. I didn't get a chance to read it.
The second volume 2 of Star Trek Green Lantern started today.
Oh really?
Yeah, I haven't read the first one, but
I'm okay with it. I think that with like people take their movies too fucking seriously, and I'm excited for. I like comics because they can do things that are over the top like that and not have the same scrutiny that movies do.
Yeah.
Because with movies, I think a lot more money is involved. And people just are too emotionally invested in it. And like, we'll read that comic and say this comic is trash and just unsubscribe or whatever, get it pulled out of our box. But with movies, people feel like you've ruined something that was sacred to us.
Right.
And I'm not gonna say there's not comic book fans that are like that.
Oh yeah.
But we're so used to our freaking non-canon like mashups and people saying like, oh, remember this terrible thing we did? Yeah, we're just gonna throw that out.
Yeah, like there's a point at which you learn, like, I can't ever get too mad about anything in comics.
Yeah.
I know if it's that bad.
Yeah.
Like in Brian Azzarello's run, when they Wonder Woman, when they made basically, instead of Paradise Island being like all the women escape to create their own feminist utopia, they like started killing all the men on their island to create a feminist utopia. I was like, narratively, this is interesting. In the long term, this really breaks the Themyscirians. But I'm not that worried about it because I know 2 years later, someone's going to come and fix it.
Yes.
And here we are, Greg Rucka's doing exactly that.
Yes. And I think that we were talking about this too, like, you can't really ruin a character. And it's because we have so much good memories of those characters, and maybe the people who are fans of the movies don't. So to them, it's like, you've ruined Transformers. And to me, it's like, do I like the current Iron Man run? I'm not the biggest. I like the Doctor Doom one. I'm not a big fan of the Iron Heart run. But is it gonna make me cry and shed tears? No, I'll go back and read The Secret Origin of Tony Stark when I want to have the glory again. You know, there's other books I can read and go back and enjoy. And I think for the moviegoers, it's like, you ruined this for me.
Like,
you ruined it.
The only way a comic book company can really retcon or take away the history of the comics you love is if they come into your house and take your collection away from you.
Yes.
Which they're not gonna do. Like,
Yes.
yes, they retconned Dark Phoenix so that it wasn't actually Jean. That doesn't mean that you can't read Dark Phoenix knowing that the plan was for it to really be Jean.
Yes.
You can still feel that weight because
Yes.
you know better.
Yeah. And same thing with like Ghost in the Shell. So many people are like, oh bro, it's a Ghost in the Shell. I'm like, joke's on you, nerds. Get wrecked, because I own all of the anime in glorious Blu-ray and I can watch it anytime I want. But
They're gonna do the George Lucas thing where they're gonna remaster it, except for now it's gonna be
yeah, they would
Scarlett
have to
Johansson animated
I know,
into
right?
the movie.
They would have to come to my house and steal my DVDs to ruin them.
Replace them.
Which is why, okay, this is the last episode. We're gonna go a little off the trails here. We're gonna take a note out of Sally's book. That is why the controversy with Star Wars was so terrible, though. You know, like they went back. It's impossible to find like an original cut of that movie now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's messed up.
That's true.
That's messed up.
That like, I mean, and it's so easy. You just make the new copies with, you know, whatever.
The old
and then
original and the
theatrical
new one.
cut. And you can also, hey Disney, I know you love selling new Star Wars DVDs every fucking year.
They would
now you
make
could
money.
Just, right, with the theatrical cut, two versions of the same movie, $40 fucking a piece. They would sell like gangbusters.
They would, because you'd have to literally have a VHS tape. I don't even
Mm-hmm.
like the small changes, like changing some of the graphics and stuff. I'm like, I miss the old, like 70s shitty CGI.
Yeah.
Can we
Yeah.
get that back where it was clearly like a miniature? against
Yeah,
the
like
backdrop?
I understand that sometimes things don't age well, but like you also like have to understand the context in which you're watching something.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can enjoy Star Wars and know that I can see how they're doing the special effects, but also understand that at the time it was groundbreaking. You know, we
Yeah.
can understand the historical context of these things.
Yeah.
So why I love reading Jack Kirby comics from the 70s is because
Yeah.
nobody was doing that at all at the time, and I know everybody is now, but it doesn't change the fact that Commandy is still super impressive.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And I think another thing is like, as now being sort of a content creator myself, sort of, you know, just a little bit, but being a content creator myself, when I look back at my original streams and my old streams, thanks for the resub, Bash.
Thank you.
But when I look back at my old, like, original streams, I am pretty, like, embarrassed by them because I've come such a far way. I was really timid. I was really quiet. I always played it really safe. And then the internet shat all over me. And I was like, fuck it. If they're going to hate me anyway, then I'm going to be myself and unapologetically be myself. But when I look back at that old stuff and when people post it, because my subs love posting old GIFs and old screenshots of me from back in the day when my hair was like this short and, you know, I wore no makeup because I need to prove that I'm a real gamer and therefore I can't feminize myself. They love, like, I get embarrassed, but part of me has accepted, like, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have the content that I have now, and it's a natural part of the growth process. And I really wish Lucas would understand that. Like, you're always going to be embarrassed of your past work. Everybody is, I think, to some level. Like, no one's like, my first work was my greatest work. No, unless you're J.K. Rowling, that's just not true.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think her third work was best work.
Well, you know, her original run. Like,
Oh yeah, yes, yeah.
Shade. Spill the tea. We're creating drama here.
We're gonna have a whole separate conversation, a whole separate show about
What house
Harry
are
Potter
you?
book with Hufflepuff.
You're a Hufflepuff.
I am.
I could see it being a Hufflepuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
no,
am
it checks out.
Sadly, I am a Slytherin. So I used to lie to people and say I was Ravenclaw, but let's be real, I'm too ambitious. So
Sadly.
I am a Slytherin.
Yeah, you're not the only Slytherin
No,
around here,
myself and Tara are the only two Slytherins at Hyper RPG.
though. Hey, you
I
could
think
be in
there's
worse
one
company
more.
than Tara.
No, me and Tara, that's the duo that's gonna take over the
That's
world.
the dream team.
Tara Bronze for the White House 2020. That's all I'm saying. She's more politically correct. We'll put her as president. I'll be her Biden. I'll be her swinging Joe Bronze.
Yeah. There we go. There's friggin' Joe Bronze. I like it. I like it. Tara Bronze,
Running
2020.
against Overlord, we would win. I just want, like, instead of
against Overlord.
we'll abuse the I'm with her hashtag and have people think it's us, and it'll be great. We'll get that endorsement from Hillary Clinton. It'll be great. Nobody will see it coming.
Keep an eye out. Except for all of you watching this stream.
Yeah.
You're the only ones who know about swinging Joe Bronze.
Yep, that's what I wanted to use the last episode of graphic content for, was to announce mine and Tara's candidacy for 2020.
Everybody's doing it these days.
Yep.
It's gonna be like you, Zach, Kanye.
Yeah,
It's
except
gonna be-
except we actually have a chance. Unlike Zach.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be Tara Kanye 2020. Apparently, that's gonna be the big
Tara
election.
Kanye?
Tara versus Kanye. Yeah.
Oh,
Who I don't know who
see,
Kanye's
now
VP is
a lot
gonna
of it's going to come down to his running mate. And I think that unless Kanye can get somebody better than swinging Joe Bronze,
I don't think so. Unless the only person Kanye could get would be actual Joe Biden himself.
that would be like tough competition.
It's hard
How
to beat.
can I out Biden?
We do
I don't know.
love our Biden. Okay.
So
let's see.
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters is happening. It's fun. What's next? Okay, this is weird. This is actually pretty neat. Marvel sort of stealth announced or accidentally announced, one or the other. Where's my mouse? That a new Spider-Man book is going to be coming. in the solicitations for March just came out for everybody. And so there's what seems like the end of the current big Spider-Man book. God damn it!
We're on a new setup today, so
we're on a
just
new setup.
Be
Everything's
patient with
big.
us.
Oh, it was so good just a second ago. Okay,
Oh,
wait.
I think you got it back. How do you full screen that shit?
Okay.
Oh.
Here we go.
Sweet.
Boom. Okay,
Technical.
it's
I was
back.
gonna sing my technical difficulty song, but I'm glad that you fixed it before I had to sing it.
Yeah, I got this computer here that like connects to the screen you can see, and the computer is like super zoomed out because the screen you can see is super huge. So my mouse is like a fucking pixel and a half.
Pixel and a half.
Yeah.
No,
That's
I
how
see
small
it.
it
It's
is.
tiny.
It's a half
It's
pixel.
microscopic. I wouldn't be able to see
So
it
it's
from
hard to figure out where I'm scrolling. So the news is that in the copy for Clone Conspiracy Omega, which is going to be the last issue of the big Clone Conspiracy story that's going on now, which I know basically nothing about because I'm not following Spider-Man. Something's happening, and it is being advertised as the start of a new run by Peter David and Mark Bagley. Bagley's been doing X-Men with Dennis Hopeless, doing all new for a while, and Peter David is he's the guy who gave Aquaman a hook, and he wrote Young Justice, and Peter David's really big. He wrote Hulk for a long time. He's Peter David. He wrote for Young Justice, the TV show, as well.
Well then.
So yeah, I guess there's a new Spider-Man book coming out in the spring by Peter David and Mark Bagley, which will be exciting. Apparently we're getting the final fate of Ben Reilly, which I will never believe that sentence when they say it to me. He'll never be gone. Fucking Ben Reilly. He's that clone Spider-Man.
I'm
No one gives a shit about.
I'm not. Here's the thing. I'm not a huge Spider-Man fan, but after that last Spider-Man trailer, I want to be because that was really good.
That was really good.
With like the mic, and remember, I'm a Keaton fan. I liked Keaton Batman, so I love that whole like I'll kill your family.
Oh my god, I'm so
like,
excited for Keaton Vulture.
Keaton Vulture!
It's gonna be
Yes!
so good.
Yes! It's so amazing. I'm so excited.
I did wiggle the mouse and then it got to the corner and I accidentally got rid of everything. That's the problem. Should be just highlighting things. There we go. Okay. So yeah.
That's
That
the thing.
is basically it. Oh, the only last piece of news is a rumor that apparently Carol Danvers, Brie Larson, is being called up to be in Infinity War before her solo movie.
That's not good.
You don't think so?
That character requires a lot of explaining.
I expect.
I don't think she's like Spider-Man, where you can just like be like, "Oh, hey, what's up, fam?"
I expect it to be more like.
She's not as iconic. Let's be honest here. The kids aren't exactly running around.
Right. I expect it to be
Captain
more like
Marvel
Black
shirts.
Panther, where she kind of gets the backdoor origin.
But Black Panther, once again, they were able to explain that in like a 3-minute scene.
Yeah,
Who he
they
is
were because
and what he is.
he's much simpler. I guess it'll be more that I think some crazy shit's gonna happen to her and she'll be like comatose or some shit, and then we'll see like basically it'd be the equivalent of seeing like Batman's parents die, but nothing after that. That's what I expect to see in Infinity War from Carol. Because yeah, I think you're right. They need to do more than just like, oh hey look, she's here now.
Yeah. You're right. Her boobs do look
Yeah, I
weird
don't
in
know.
that
This,
picture.
this was just the image that the news article
Why did you
had.
mention that?
It's,
Now I can't unsee it.
yeah,
though.
it's not.
Why are her boobs like trying to run away from each other?
It's like the artist started with the star. And it was like
Yeah.
the star has to be perfect. And then was like, wait, I don't have any room for the boobs, so they have to go around the star. Like she has this big like star like in her costume that's like forcing her boobs to the side.
Oh my god.
Gotta get a new fucking suit. This is awful.
Yeah, that's not. She needs some support there.
If you want to right the world's wrongs and break free from political cons, there's only one selection for 2020 election. Vote for Tara and Swing and Joe Bronze.
Yes,
Hashtag
that
Phone
was
for Pride. Hashtag I'm with her.
that's an amazing freaking poem. I don't know how you managed to fit Swing and Joe Bronze into a rhyme, but I'm really proud of you. You're awesome.
Real quick, QQ, can you throw that image from the screen back up so they can see the Carol Danvers image we were talking about? That's what we were talking about. Where like the star just looks like it is like the costume is supposed to be fabric. Too few artists remember that fabric is a thing.
Oh man, that looks weird. No, like, is she not? She needs. Homegirl needs to go to Victoria's Secret and just get a little bit of lift and push together action. Because it legit looks like the star is like opposite poles of like a magnet, and it's like pushing her boobs actively away from each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh god, my eyes. Yeah, it's not
Okay.
ideal. Let's sit and critique this woman's body.
Let's move on. Hey, we're not critiquing her body. We're critiquing the art.
Yes, that's right. It's fun to say it that way.
But
though.
yeah, that's kind of
like, let's sit and stare at this
Let's just
woman's
look at
boobs
Captain Marvel's boobs and talk about why they're
how
wrong.
they do nothing for my nethers. I am as dry as a dreidel.
I was like, where are you gonna go with that one?
It was sitting on the table.
Okay, dry as a dreidel. So we, like we talked about, let's before we talk about our polls of the year and then of the day, which I think we'll do it in that order. Yes. We'll meander because we meander.
Yes.
We should talk about the end of Vanquished. Right?
Let's talk about the end of
The
Vanquished.
big finale of Valiant Vanquished
Go on.
was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just so those of you who rely on these recaps and was waiting for the finale recap, I guess we'll just let you know we fought Mars and won, and that was basically the episode. Was like a lot of kick-ass.
It was the
moments
most
in
gushy,
space.
feel-good episode of all time.
Yes, it was.
It was the most like, we don't want people to cry because it's the last episode of Vanquished. So we're gonna give them as many nerd/fangirl-gasm moments in one episode as humanly possible. And we did.
Yeah, there were a lot of good moments.
It was good. Yeah, there was some good stuff in there.
Yeah, with Cross and Armstrong just let loose in a pile of robots. Glitch and Erida were like Power Rangers in space.
Yep.
Saber cats and unicorns and other saber cats. So my girlfriend works every Monday. And so every Monday when I get home, I will give her a rundown of what happened during the episode.
This is adorable. Why are you so cute?
And
God damn it.
It was
Gary be so cute.
we tried. It was so much fun. It was so exciting. I was like, oh my god, now this part. I was like looking forward to telling her about the saber cat moment where you hid behind yours and then Erida made it distracted by a ball of yarn that it ate and then exploded.
Yeah.
That was without a doubt my favorite moment of the finale.
Yep.
Was the cat moment. So Nebraska got to just party on with Exo and Man and Warren, got to do a fastball special.
And you got, that was awesome.
fun.
You got to hang out with Senpai.
Senpai noticed the shit out of me.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah, that was cool. I got to assassinate somebody and get away with it.
That was
I
good.
feel like that was really cool.
That was cool.
I feel kind of bad for our poor DTD Merrick.
Yeah,
A little
poor
bad
Merrick,
for him.
man. Never had a chance. Then we just finished him off after
Yeah.
making him suffer for basically 2 years.
Yep, and I just killed the man in cold blood in the middle of a White House address.
He kind of forced your hand.
He did. I gave him several outs,
He did.
not because I was afraid to pull the trigger, but more because I was afraid to make a scene. For the record, if he had left that area with me, he is a fool, because he definitely would have.
Yeah.
As soon as I had him, in
Yeah.
private,
Yeah.
I would have killed him.
Whatever.
There's no way he was gonna get out of that situation.
You taking apart his hand was just beautifully heartbreaking. Just nope.
Yeah.
That whole thing that you've been building up towards just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. You don't get to have this turn into a supervillain.
We
'cause
finally-
I just
the
turned off
le-
your supervillain power.
Now you're just a dude without a hand, and and now we're gonna kill you.
Glitch, abusing amputees since 2016. It's fun times. I am sad we didn't get to see Betamax before the end.
Yeah, that would have been fun. We did get to see the Leaves ship sail off into the distance.
Yes, the Leaves ship.
That
ship
happened.
has sailed. There was some. Let's be honest. There's some Alarda.
There was a little bit of Alarda there at the
Just a little
end.
bit.
Of course, we got Grandpappy Carlisle's blessing.
Yeah, which is great. And
which
we
is
also found
good.
out Grandpappy Carlisle's low-key racist against British people.
Yeah, he's not a fan of British people. And I sort of realized that, like, inadvertently, I think Nebraska is a little bit now. Because the only British people he's met are Neville and Ninjak.
Yeah.
And Neville enslaved him, and Ninjak cut off his beard. So...
Yeah.
I'm sure that Arena will set him straight.
So yeah, I don't know. It was good.
It was a good finale.
Basically, it ended with these guys being superheroes and me being kind of their leader, and I'm gonna train them and send them on ops, but I'll be sort of losing or misappropriating funds from the PRS to kind of gear them and fund them, because that was inevitably gonna be a problem. So I actually talked to the GM about it outside of the game, and that was all like, they didn't know that I was gonna come back. Like Tara asked me right after the episode, she's like, "Did you know you were gonna be there?" I was like, "Yeah. But I thought, like, okay, well, for you guys to be a superhero team, you have to have money and resources. How do we explain where you get those money and resources from? So it made sense that Glitch uses her connections to PRS to kind of give you guys, like, jets and stuff.
Yeah.
Which would be cool. So you can be an official team.
Yeah, which is good, because we've come a long way, but doesn't mean that we don't still need help. Yeah.
Sometimes we still mess up.
But we saved the day, and it was...
Who knows? Maybe we'll have a special edition episode of Open Legend where we get to see a leaves date. Or a therapy session.
Therapy session? Or a musical episode!
Yeah.
AJ's been pushing real hard for a musical episode.
Yeah. And just to assuage everyone's fears, Open Legend is not going to be in a high fantasy setting. I know that I haven't announced a setting yet. I have no plans to announce a setting yet. And if anybody leaks the setting, they'll probably go mysteriously missing over the next few days.
Noted.
But it's not high fantasy. The only reason the last two was because it was to promote the Kickstarter, which was in the Amoria's Dawn setting. So that wasn't a setting I created. It was a setting that already existed that I was using for that show. So it's not going to be a high fantasy setting. If you were wanting that or not wanting that, I don't really care. I'm not doing that. So, and I have no plans to change it because everyone's way too exciting about the setting that I'm kind of creating a little bit from scratch. So we're not going to be doing high fantasy.
Yes, but it will be awesome. I will not tell you what we will do because I took that threat seriously. But no, it's really exciting. We're all like we've all been saying on Twitter. We've been working on our characters.
The setting is dank memes.
The setting is dank
guide
memes.
us through the 4chan.
Yeah.
Yes, I will be your tour guide through this, the 4chans. Chan number 1.
The journey of the Chans. Team Dank meme.
And any opportunity for joint character creation process? No. It's all going to be magical. It has to all be behind the scenes because if it's not, it's going to ruin the magic.
So we want you to tune in.
I will say
9th.
this hint: a lot of our characters are fleshed out.
Yes, we're doing a practice run on next Monday actually. Instead of Vanquished, we can't help ourselves. We have to game together on Monday.
Yeah, which was our main motivation for even doing this, was because we want to game together. That's the only reason. So I know that Lizzie's character is basically done. AJ's we're finishing off. Yours we're kind of finishing off. Yeah. And but there's not going to be any leaks or spoilers.
No, you're gonna.
But keep an eye on your social media feeds, because I know we're gonna probably tweet out some teasers.
Yeah, we have been
photos and video footage.
I will say one thing about my character: he's gonna have at least a high school education.
Good.
He's gonna be able to fucking read.
Good, because you not being able to read
and
Vanquished was an issue sometimes.
Will there be permadeath?
No.
Cool.
Because the whole point is for us to game together. So if there was a permadeath, who are we gonna replace Scott? No, that's stupid. Who would want to watch that show?
The amount of time it would take to make somebody grow a beard this big, you can't. No.
There can't be permadeath.
That's how I stay irreplaceable on this channel, is by having the biggest beard.
Yeah, I don't know. There can't be permadeath because it's for us, this whole project is about having this cast in particular, because we were all pretty set on that we wanted to play games together. So to have permadeath just wouldn't make sense in this setting, because it's What's the point if one of us dies and has to leave the show? Then why did we do it? And it helps that Open Legend basically is like very anti-permadeath, and they actually actively encourage you to not kill your players, but to find other ways to punish them and make results sort of have real tangible effects. Permadeath, in my opinion, is a really lazy GM out. I feel like it's a really easy way to say, instead of figuring out this big thing you have to deal with or this big, you know, this big uphill battle you're gonna have, I'm just gonna take you out of the game because you got knocked down to 0. So
I wonder if we feel that way a little bit because we read comics. Because there's something to be said about like in comics, you know they're gonna win, right? You know they're gonna make it out eventually, and we know that doesn't mean that there can't be suspense. We read these month after month and we feel suspense, and so like I definitely don't grant the premise that with permadeath means there can no longer, or without permadeath you can't have danger. You know, like there's still gonna be suspense, there's still gonna be danger, and Open Legend is like fairly forward, is of course a thing in RPGs in general for GMs to do, but Open Legend is like built around it.
Yeah, and it does make sense in BattleTech as a game, but in this game it just doesn't make sense. So, you know, but Bronze, you have Goobers are down there. I would rather die.
I'm not even dead yet. You're
than not
replacing
play with
me?
this group. I'm just saying, it's not about Goobers and Dan, but I would just, they are the, and I told you guys, they're the reason that I'm GMing this. Like, they're the reason that I'm doing it. So if they're not involved, I don't want to do it. So yeah, we're not replacing them with anybody. Right. That's not gonna happen.
We just love gaming together, so we're going to.
Yeah, we're like a troop now.
All right, we're gonna start leaking stuff. We don't. What's that? We're gonna start talking too much about Open Legend.
Yeah, a little bit.
But January 9th, that will be the premiere date for Open Legend, because we're not gonna be on air the first Monday after the new year.
Yeah.
Money.
If you want a office much better led, and want hope rather than dread, then vanquish your fears, vote Tara in 4 years. She has swingin' Joe Bronze, nuff said. Hashtag thumb for pride, hashtag last one.
Thank you, Prosperous Guard.
That's like not one, but 2 amazing poems that you managed to incorporate swinging Joe Bronze into.
I think you need to make Prosperous Guard like your communications director for the campaign or something.
I probably do, yeah.
All right, you're hired. Okay, let's do it. The big moment.
The comics of the year.
Pulls of the year. So we each chose 3.
So we'll alternate them.
And we'll alternate. And we definitely are gonna have to put a big old asterisk at the beginning and say we forget stuff. And there are lots and lots of books that we haven't read and that we maybe didn't think about when coming up with this list.
Yes.
So don't feel left out if your book isn't there.
This is very much like a spur of the moment list.
Yes.
Off the top of my head list.
So, what's your, and these are also in no particular order.
Yeah, this is not my rank of number 1, number 2. This is just
3 was hard enough.
Yes. Okay.
All right, so what you got first for us?
My first, and once again, no particular order, comic of the year, pick of the year, pull of the year, whatever you want to call it, was Snot Girl. I think it did a lot of like different, it was just such a different book than what I was accustomed to reading. And it was so like cringy and annoying in places, especially with how vapid and just kind of self-centered and shallow Lottie is, but it was fun to actually grow to like the story despite having a little bit of an obnoxious main character. And it quickly escalated into this weird just sort of situation where there's like a murder, there's like impersonation happening, there's a creepy like detective that's got his own motives. She thinks she kills a girl, but she's not sure if she did. And it became this just really cool, like surreal experience. And I loved it. I loved all of it. And I think that it resonated with me so much because it's a little bit of a commentary on like Instagram stars and on like, you know, content creators in general. And being on Twitch, there was so much that I had in, like there's so much to it that I could like not really relate to, but relate people in the industry or my feelings about the industry to. So it had that going for it, and it was just, I don't know, it was just a great book. I really liked it. I had a lot of fun with it.
All right, Snot Girl. Yeah. By Brian Lee O'Malley. So this is by the guy that did Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
And stuff. So
and it looks gorgeous. It's just so beautiful.
Leslie Hung is the artist.
Such a beautiful book. Right.
So my first one, the first thing that came to mind when I thought about this year in comics was the DC Universe Rebirth special. $3 for 60 pages or 100 pages, whatever it was. This book, I mean, I knew it was going to be a big thing. I didn't know what to expect going into it, which is weird for me. Usually a big event, I'm like, all right, this is the premise. I know, like, Justice League versus Suicide Squad started today, and I knew everything that happened didn't I expected to happen. But DC Universe Rebirth was the big mystery. What's it going to be? Are they going to reboot? Are they going to unboot? And it turned out all they did was bring one character back to life. That was the whole thing. But it was all about bringing the themes of the DC Universe back to what they should be. About the, it's about Superman being good, and it's about Wonder Woman being good, and not Warrior Woman. And it's about we have these characters, we have these legacies. It all boils down to the best page of the whole book that I just got to show you here. Wally and Barry. So cute. How could I ever forget you? I want a poster of this page so bad. I definitely cried reading this for the first time. It was one of those books where afterwards I read it immediately. It was really the kind of thing that they were like, this is a book for DC fans of yesterday and today to come back and remember why we love this, and it worked.
I agree. I get mad when people say that Rebirth was just another DC reboot, because I agree completely. I think that was a beautiful pick.
Yeah, and it absolutely wasn't a reboot. It was in literally no way a reboot.
Yeah.
And it also brings in the big plot point where we're gonna have in a few years a Justice League versus Watchmen story.
Yes, because you see that. Yep.
Which a lot of people are all big and upset about, and I'm just excited because it's been 30 fucking years.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah, I'm not upset in the least.
Again, nobody's coming in and taking my Watchmen away from me.
I actually sat and debated it because I felt like when I picked my comics that I didn't pick a lot. I didn't pick anything from DC. And once again, it was like a really quick kind of list. Yeah. But I think like DC should get some credit this year, because it is crazy that how many quality comics came out when Rebirth launched. And how none of them in particular really blew my mind, but they were all really good. And I think that that's important. I would rather have stable quality than to have one standout issue. And I feel like, the freaking Aquaman run right out of the gate was just amazing, and I loved it. And the Flash run right out of the gate was super awesome, following the events of Flashpoint. And Batman, Batman Detective Comics and the normal Batman run were both so good. Nightwing is back in the Nightwing suit. He's no longer Grayson, and I followed that entire run into the new one. There was so many good comics that just came right out of the gate into Rebirth, and they all had like a quality, and there was very few that I was unhappy about. So.
Yeah, it's funny because I thought this year was kind of DC's year. DC had a killer year this year in a way that Marvel had Secret Wars and Civil War 2, which both had the exact same nightmare plaguing them of delays or the ending of the storyline coming out before the storyline finished, stuff like that. Like, it was a rough year for Marvel, I think.
Yeah.
As far as like they had a bunch of Deadpool books that came and went. They had a lot of things come and go. They saw a lot of success with Squirrel Girl. Miss Marvel continues to be what it is, and there are things like the Ultimates that are doing really well. But yeah, I think that DC, and this part of it is like, DC went back to, this is what we are and what we're good at.
I almost feel like DC having bad movies worked for them. Because I feel like Marvel is so tied up in its MCU now. Like the fact that there's a Gamora buff, there's a Star-Lord buff. Right? Because what? Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is coming out. We got...
Well, you got a Thanos solo series.
I don't have high hopes for these. And it's not because I don't think they're going to be great. It's because I saw them do this when the first one came out, And the Groot one was okay, but the Rocket Raccoon one was a mess. And I love Scotty Young. I love him so much I own the baby Thanos. So, they're like haunted by their MCU,
And I think
because they have to cater to that a little bit, and it gets frustrating.
Yeah, and part of we've seen this over the last
4
years since Disney acquired this. Disney's a really big fan of synergy.
Yes.
Right? Like, all of the Marvel animated shows are the Avengers team or the Guardians team plus some comic book. Like Miles Morales and Kamala Khan will show up in a show that is about the movie Avengers.
Yeah.
And that's something we said about, like, there's all these characters are getting books that wouldn't without a movie. And I think that, with DC, they're like, they also know that movie sales don't translate to comic book sales that much.
Yes. In fact, they're doing the opposite. They're making the shows pander to the comics.
Yes.
Because they don't have, like, they know that the shows and the movies aren't selling the comics, so they're trying to get the comic book fans to watch the shows, and it's working.
Right. And
I
also,
think that's the craziest part, is that everybody that I know is crazy that like when the Flash came out, it didn't have that much hype, and now everybody I know is watching it because of Flashpoint. So it's working. Their strategy is working.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely like, and I think also that Marvel has an issue with their TV shows. Like we talked about this a lot on the show, that the shared universe is actually like limiting in a way that like I think it's gonna be really weird with Spider-Man having to do his own franchise that's a solo franchise that's beginning in this Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like I understand the whole premise is going to be he's going to be defying Tony Stark to take on Vulture, but it's still like it's not going to make sense that Vulture exists for more than 12 minutes of a movie with Tony Stark in it.
Yes. Yes.
And when you try to say it's all connected, you just run into the problem. Like, I haven't seen the Slingshot miniseries, but I'm certain if I don't watch it, I'm gonna. But I know if I didn't, I wouldn't miss out much. I wouldn't be confused watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And if you don't watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you'll never be confused watching a movie. Yeah. Whereas, like, and because of that, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. can't do anything that big. Flash can just be like, fuck you, we run the universe, multiple timelines, we don't give a shit. Oh, completely. Do you have a daughter in your show? Fuck you, it's a son now. Who gives a fuck, Arrow? Yeah. That happened, it was amazing.
Yeah, it did happen, and it's great. I like it. I know that a lot of people will be like, wow, you're happy that they're failing. They get to do, like, the Suicide Squad comic has very little to do with the movies, and they didn't come out with 80 different solos when the movie came out, and I like what they're doing, and I think that the Rebirth, like the entire Rebirth launch was so beautifully executed. The books, for the most part, as far as I know, all came out on time, and the art and the quality, just from like they weren't switching up artists in between, which Marvel does that so much. Yeah. And I was happy. The only thing is that as a huge Lanterns fan, I feel like I lost a lot of my Lantern books, and I feel like they kind of just were like, that didn't happen, even though they in Rebirth, like they weren't really resetting things. They kind of threw out all of the Red Lanterns continuity with Atrocitus and it not being there,
but I
and
feel
Guy
like
Gardner being the leader.
That happened during Sinestro when the Red Lanterns showed up. Like, you're right about that, but it happened before Rebirth. Yeah. But you're right. That Green Lantern, like they had, with Jeff Johns, there were like 6 books, and we've been getting less and less books because we're still tapering off from the Blackest Night hype. But yeah, so it's not as big. Although I do feel like the main book, the Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps, has been better than Green Lantern has been in a long time.
I agree 100%. And actually, that's why I've had to accept that, because that's why I loved the Sinestro books and I loved the Red Lantern books, because the Green Lantern book at the time wasn't that great. But Hal Jordan and the Green Lanterns is actually like, it's so good, and they have Sinestro in it, so it's like you don't really need to have your Sinestro book and your Red Lantern book, because right now Hal's book is good. I'm not as huge of a fan of Jessica Cruz and Simon Baz. They're growing on me. I'm not going to say they aren't, but there's just things about them that I feel like that book moves so slowly compared to the other books in Rebirth.
It's funny because I remember a few months ago we had this conversation where you said that, and I was like, it's really moving, like they're growing, and now we're on like issue 10 or 11, and I'm like, it was growing, and now it's not. Still like it's not.
Yeah, it's not
fast enough. Initially, I was like, give it some time, and now I've given it time, and it's taking a while.
They take 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah. Although the villain they're doing right now is what's keeping me in the book. Is I dig this whole Phantom Lantern thing, and
I like it too.
It's got some Guardians, and I like Guardians. But yeah, Hal Jordan's book. I'm just gonna interject real quick because we didn't talk last week. You weren't here. We didn't talk about Hal Jordan that came out. Did you read the issue last week? And at the end, just in time for Christmas.
Yep.
Look who's back.
Yes, Larfleeze.
It's Larfleeze. I don't want to spoil it last week, but Larfleeze is back.
Yes, he's back. I love the Larfleeze Christmas special.
I loved that reveal that the Grand Collector, instead of being the big brainiac from fucking Convergence, it was just Larfleeze, the Orange Lantern.
I love Larfleeze. He's so good. Weird. And there's only one Orange Lantern because he's so greedy.
Yeah. He's awesome. he came to Earth, like the first time he came to Earth, it was because he'd heard of the legend of Santa Claus.
Yes.
And Hal Jordan was like, Santa Claus isn't real. And Larfleeze is like, that's fucking Superman over there. Yeah. That's Wonder Woman. Fuck you. I know Santa. You're lying.
You're lying.
Give me fucking Santa Claus. Yeah. And they're like, shit, what do we do? There's no Santa Claus. And he's like, I want Santa Claus. And he's like a child. He's like, mine. But he's also super powerful and also like brilliant and conniving in a weird way.
It was such a brilliant fucking comic. It's just the worst. I loved it.
So good. Yeah. Larfleeze is
and it made so much sense. It's like a giant Batman who delivers presents to the world. I want that. It was so good.
Super good. Oh, man. So yeah,
Oh, Larfleeze.
DC Universe is my first pull. A Rebirth is my first pull because the whole Rebirth thing. And yeah, that's my way of cheating and saying Rebirth.
It was beautifully executed. I don't blame you one bit. All right.
This next book, yours, I've got to read because everybody, including Rai, who's just discovering comics, is blown away by this.
Yeah, I love it. Seven to Eternity is my other pick of the year. This book started out, the last issue really like set the tone for the series, but this book's just right out of the gate, it has you hook, line, and sinker. It does a really good job of not explaining too much, and that's what I love about it. It doesn't sit here and try to explain to you, this is the universe. 10,000 years ago, there was Aeon, and he created. No, it just throws you in, and it understands that you as a comic book reader will just go with it, and it works for the book so well. The pacing is phenomenal. This world that they've built is so amazing. It's like sci-fi with a bit of high fantasy. It's unlike anything I've ever read before, and it's a gorgeous book too. The art is amazing, the dialogue is amazing, and right when I think I have it pegged, like, okay, I found the box that this comic fits into, it blows my mind right out of that box, and everything it does is so unexpected and so amazing. And where the last issue ended, I think it was 2 weeks ago, they actually did kind of like what they do in the movies, like everything you've been reading up until now, that's like this much of the universe, and the whole story just expanded. And it even says, like, they even do the perfect line drop at the end, like, I guess it's just 7 of us to eternity, and you're like, what?
Roll
you know,
credits.
It's like, yeah, you know how they do that? Like, you know, we'll call ourselves the Avengers. It had that exact moment. And it just does such a good job of not explaining things, and yet you're not confused. This is one of those books where you just sit back and take the writer's word for it, and you get taken on this beautiful, like, adventure. And it's tragic in places, but it does a good job of not being depressing. And yet it tackles, I don't know. The characters are so flawed and compelling to me, and I love flawed characters. And I love this book. I don't have enough good things to say about it, and I don't want to say too much because I want you to watch it or read it. I want you to read it and enjoy it for yourselves, because I feel like just you'll enjoy it, and I don't know how else to say that. They have this really cool villain named the Mud King, and it's awesome. Like, just read it. It's so good. I don't think I did a good job of talking about it because
I definitely want to read it.
There's so much to explain in it that it's hard to give you a synopsis of what it is. It's that, and yet it's an easy read. And that makes it so special to me. It's not like, I love Black Monday Murders, but it's not like Black Monday Murders where you need to read it twice to really get it. It's amazing. I'm actually probably going to do that over my Christmas weekend. I'm probably going to reread the series from 1 through the current one.
Black Monday or 7 to Eternity?
7 to Eternity. Just because I feel like this would flow even better in trade paperback format. So if you're late to it, I'm sure it'll be coming out soon. But it's such a good book. Check it out.
We got a good question from You Will Be Avenged in the chat for what books to read if you haven't read really any comics other than like Calvin and Hobbes. That question I always have to answer with another question is, what kind of movies, TV shows, comics, video games, looks like it was already asked in the chat, do you like? Because, I mean, comics are a medium like television, you know, so you gotta figure out which genre and what type of storytelling you like, and you can find it in comics, definitely. Actually, it's funny, because right when we were talking about this, I realized neither of us have Black Monday Murders on our list.
Yeah, and but I think we could collectively say it is on our list.
Yeah, I think it's because we forgot about it, but definitely, let's just start here and talk about how good that fucking book is.
Yeah, Black Monday Murders is amazing.
Yeah, no, that was like, that number one blew me away in a way that, like, I haven't been blown away by number one since, like, maybe since I started reading Fable. No, not even Fables, because the number one, like, the
There's
first
so
arc
much
wasn't
about
as
that comic
great.
that I love.
Yeah,
I love
so
massive universes. I mean, obviously I love Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, so clearly I like books where the story isn't like they just wrote the story, where they've actually built the world and then put the story in it. And I feel that way about 7 to Eternity, and I feel that way about Black Monday Murders, which is why I put them together. And they both do a really good job of not talking down to their audience. Yeah. And I love that. I don't want things to be overly explained. I hate reading a page of text. Have you seen that? So many comics do that now.
Like, here's
a
the
page
whole
of text
mythos.
right before you read the comic, and it's like, you're being lazy if you just want me to read this, like, this is the world we exist in, magic doesn't exist anymore, I don't really want to know, just put me, explain it as you go along. Understand that I will get it.
I love Star Wars, but I don't think it needs the crawl.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
You know, I think it's better without it, actually.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. I think if they throw you in, there's always a moment for surprise. And with Seven to Eternity, it does pleasantly surprise you in places. You don't know the rules of this universe. You don't know the rules as far as what are these people's abilities? What are these people's, like, what races exist here? You don't know, and because of that, you never know what's gonna happen from frame to frame, and that's what makes it beautiful. And in that vein, I'm just gonna say You Will Be Avenged. If you know the only comic you've read is Calvin and Hobbes, you want to get into comics, I feel like the biggest misconception is thinking that you have to get into the big two. Thinking it has to be DC, it has to be Marvel, it has to be Superman. Don't be afraid to go off that beaten path, because that's most likely how you'll get in. And I always say this, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but the comics that got me personally into comic books were the Vertigo comics. Why the Last Man, Preacher, and Sandman are my 3 favorite comics of all time, and they were the first comics I ever read. And that's probably why they're my favorite comics of all time. But I enjoy everything, and I think you can too. Like the Bee and Puppy Cat comic gives me no end of joy, but would I compare it to Seven to Eternity? No, they're different experiences. And don't be afraid to, read something a little bit different. Because especially like the Star Wars comics coming out of Marvel, it's not just about DC and Marvel. Like, when you're going to Marvel, you don't have to go for the Avengers. Go for the Star Wars books. They're really good, and I like a lot of them. And that way, you're not feeling like you're coming into this universe that you don't understand. You're coming into a universe that you do understand. Like, you know what a stormtrooper is, and you know what maybe you know what these things are, so you don't have to deal with all that stress of, I don't know what happened in Flashpoint, and I don't know who Barry and Wally are. You don't have to worry about that, because pick a universe that's familiar to you, or pick an indie universe like something out of Image.
Yeah.
And you'll be caught up from the get-go.
Although I will also say, I want to make sure to say this in a way that doesn't contradict any of that, because that's all super true.
Yes.
But I don't necessarily think that a lot of people are afraid of getting into big two comics. I don't think it's actually that scary. You have to do a little bit of work, but for all of them, I think especially DC, there's a lot of standalone books that are made for you,
That's
right?
true.
All-Star Superman or Dark Knight Returns. Marvel's been trying to make more. I think Old Man Logan is actually a really good one, where like as long as you know Wolverine kills people, you can just check out Old Man Logan. But there's also like my first Green Lantern book was Blackest Night.
Oh yeah, which is amazing.
It's like right into a big event comic, and it has a beginning, middle, and end. And I was like, oh, look at all these characters. I Googled them, and I sort of fell in love with them. So I mean, there's so many things. You mentioned like sci-fi and high fantasy, and that's why I go to Green Lantern, is because that's where I feel like that's the most like in the DC universe, that's where that lives more than anything else. That like I would say Green Lantern is awesome for that. Sinestro Corps of War is just absolutely superb.
I own it and I love it. Yeah. Godhead, I like that one too.
Godhead was fun. But then yeah, there's also like there's definitely stuff to be found in the big two that aren't the main characters too. Like if you're interested in Marvel, the Moon Knight run right now is amazing.
Yes, you do. Silver Surfer.
Yeah,
is kind of his own entity. And we were actually talking about this on my channel last night. I'm a variety caster on Twitch, and I stream on my own. And we were talking. Somebody asked me like, how do I like? What if I want to get into the big two? I actually opened the question with that. Like, where do I start? And I was like, honestly, just start with trade paperbacks. Don't stress yourself out about collecting numbered issues. Just have fun with it. Pick up the ones that look best to you. You know, just try reading The Long Halloween. Try reading, Death of the Family. Just try jumping in. Because the cool thing about DC and even Marvel trade paperbacks is they're pretty good at self-containing the story.
Yeah.
They might make some reference to things outside of the universe, but very rarely. And start there, and eventually from reading those, you'll start to learn enough about the sort of ecosystem that these characters live in that you can start reading the singles. Like when Rebirth comes out and you see a number one, you can start reading those and understanding like, okay, I know who this person is. I know who these people are. And you can kind of get introduced into the universe that way.
There's also tons of resources, kind of like what we do here, where people can help you get into it. Where do I start with this? Where do I start with that? If you have very specific questions about like
Doctor Strange.
Yeah, well, I want to know about Doctor Strange.
What
People
do I
can
need to
tell
know?
you and also you could be like, I want to get into the old school stuff or the more modern stuff, because there are new starting points every few years for all of these characters. Like if you want to read Inhumans, I could tell you 3 or 4 different books that all have different art styles and storytelling styles from like the time period they're from. Because like if X-Men, I have a lot of people would say, oh, check out Chris Claremont's X-Men. Well, that's from the 70s, and there's so fucking many words in it that like it's a really dense comic book, right? And or if you start with Grant Morrison's X-Men, well, it's Grant Morrison, so maybe you need to ease yourself into Grant Morrison if you're reading that comics, right? But it's easy to get into Brian Michael Bendis' X-Men because Bendis is really good at writing accessible comics. Jeff Johns is that way too.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's resources like I sort of learned the DC universe with the help of Reddit. That was big for me, but also
I did too. There's amazing resources online. I want to start doing my own YouTube series on it too. Of like, so you want to get into the Fantastic Four. These are the 12 iconic comics or trade paperbacks that you should read, and they do it in a really affordable fashion. Because I think one of the biggest mistakes is I've had some of my viewers say like, oh, you have the Marvel Masterworks, so I bought them. And I'm like, you don't have to read 60s comics if you don't want to, I promise. And I know I don't like a lot of 60s comics, but I love the Doctor Strange 60s comics, the Strange Tales. So I do own a lot of those Marvel Masterworks, and I feel bad because I post about them on social media not really thinking, and people are like, I bought the Marvel Masterworks of this other character. I'm getting through it, ... I'm like, no, those are really expensive books. You don't have to start at the beginning.
Yeah, and
I promise you don't have to start at the beginning.
All of it, right? Like I had this issue when I initially would help people get into Green Lantern, where like, to me, the best way to read Green Lantern is to read Jeff Johns' 7-year epic.
Yeah.
And I stand by that. If you're willing to do that, it's the best way to read Green Lantern, but you don't have to, right? You can read the Green Lantern Rebirth, you can go right to Sinestro Corps War, then to the Emerald Dawn, and then into Blackest Night. Like, you can kind of just do those 4.
Yeah.
And then you've got a whole awesome story.
Yeah. You jumped in at Blackest Night. You can do that.
Yeah. And I went back because Blackest Night was like, everybody's talking about how Barry just came back. What happened there? And this was a mistake. I was like, he came back in Final Crisis. So I had read 2 or 3 Batman trades and Blackest Night, and then I was like, I'll read Final Crisis.
Yeah.
I didn't understand any of it.
Yeah, for me, like, Blackest Night is what sparked my interest in the other Lantern Corps. Because I love that book, but I was never a huge fan of, like, the Green Lanterns in particular. And from that comic, I was like, I am kind of interested in the Red Lanterns, and I did the opposite of what I should have done. I just went back, like, and tracked down number one. It was like already on issue number like 22, and I went back and tracked down each and every single issue and read it that way, and I don't regret it because I love that run. So you could do that, and you know what? It's not Fleck. It's not bad to like those encyclopedias. We're just saying you don't have to read the entirety of the Doctor Strange comic book compendium to be into Doctor Strange. You don't have to start at Doctor Strange's first appearance in Strange Tales. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, you don't have to be as obsessive as us to love something as much as us. And I'm not
as obsessive about it as like I'm not as obsessive with every single comic book character. I really am only that way with a handful. And you could feel free to pick your books that you're like, I want to read the first through everything. And for me, Doctor Strange is one of those few. Constantine is another one. I like that sort of magic-y, witchy Marvel. Just like I also love cosmic Marvel.
Yeah, like this my intro to Marvel was I'd only read a couple. I was this big DC guy, and I didn't know anybody who knew anything about the Inhumans.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll learn about the Inhumans. So then I just read all fucking Inhumans.
Yeah, which is a lot
easier than reading all the Iron Man.
Which is
way
too much.
There's just Inhumans pop up here and there. Now they've got 2 ongoings, but until 2010, that never happened.
Yeah.
And so you can do that, and sort of that led me into Cosmic Marvel because the Inhumans were heavily involved with War of Kings and Realm of Kings.
Definitely.
It led me to House of M and some of the mutant stuff because right after House of M, there's a book called Son of M, which is all about Quicksilver and the Inhumans. So I read House of M for that. I read World War Hulk because Black Bolt appears in it. I read The Secret Invasion because the Black Bolt that appeared in World War Hulk turned out to be a Skrull. And then, I also fell in love with X-Men through Grant Morrison, so now I read a bunch of X-Men. So I don't know, the Marvel Universe as a whole. I'm really ignorant when it comes to Spider-Man and the Avengers.
Yeah.
But I know enough that I can read Civil War and Secret Wars and understand all of it.
Exactly.
Or at least all that I need to understand.
Just because a lot of the characters interact with each other. And Ebert, that's what I was trying to get at. Struggled through the 60s X-Men Masterworks. Pretty dated. Love the Chris Claremont run. You shouldn't, and I'm not saying, what you did was wrong, but I don't want people to think that you have to do that to get into it, because how much of what you read in the 60s was really relevant by the time you got to the Chris Claremont run, and I think I always say it's not bad to pick up the iconic comics, because there's a reason that people love them. And if you read everybody raves about Blackest Night for a good reason, but if you read Blackest Night and you're like, well, I still don't like the Green Lantern Corps. You're probably not going to like it.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to be like, I'm going to read Phoenix Saga and then be like, I don't like it. That's a fine way to gauge whether you're going to like something or not. There's a reason that these are the like holy grail comics and people are like, oh, there's a reason.
Yeah, and there's some things like is because I think you're absolutely right about Blackest Night, right? If you read Blackest Night and you still don't care about any of the Green Lanterns or the Corps,
not going
then Cosmic DC is not for you, right? And that's absolutely okay.
What was that? Did you hear that?
I did. I don't know what it was.
Oh my god.
Sure, fine.
Send help.
Yeah, like if you. But at the same time, if you read Old Man Logan and you didn't necessarily like it, that doesn't mean that you wouldn't like Wolverine or X-Men. It probably just means you don't like Mark Miller.
Yeah.
The same about like with Superman. There's a lot of Superman books that you can if you dislike them doesn't mean you necessarily dislike Superman. But if you read All-Star Superman and you can't get into it, then you're probably only gonna like alternate takes on Superman.
Yeah.
You know, which is also okay. I know people that love a good, Injustice or Red Sun, they don't necessarily care about an actual normal American Superman, and I understand that. But yeah, there's so much. There's always so much to read that like you shouldn't.
I never get tired of that question. We get asked it a lot.
Yeah, me too. Like every new person who's like, "What should I read comics?" I'm like, "Ooh, I have a new puzzle to solve, or new comics to think about."
And I feel like a lot of people. I hate that when we criticize something, a lot of people kind of act like, oh, well, you're like so protective of your fandom. Scott and I are not the gatekeepers of the comic book nerddom. If anything, we're the greeters. We're like the Walmart greeters. And I don't ever want to make anybody feel like, oh, she's an elitist. I always joke that I'm like an elitist neckbeard, but it's because with the movies, I feel like I don't give them a free pass because I'm a comic book nerd. And I feel like a lot of people do give them a free pass. I look at them as movies, like self-contained movies. And I think that's why I look at them differently, because I don't compare them to the comic books. That being said, there are things that the comic books do better, but I also realize you can't just take a comic book, put it on film, and have it be an exact replica. If anything, I'm happy that the comic book fandom is growing, and I wish more people were excited about it. Yeah. You do have a lot more casuals in the field than you did back in the day. You have a lot more people that have only watched the movies who are like huge quote unquote comic book fans. And if anything, it's benefited us because now I can go to ThinkGeek and get a Doctor Strange shirt because the movie came out.
Yeah, it's so much easier to find clothes now that have Superman on them.
Yeah, you go to Walmart and you just had the classic Avengers and that was it. And I could not find, I couldn't find anything that was Doctor Strange related ever. And he was my favorite and it sucked. And we're starting to get more and more. The fact that I walked into a store at the mall and was able to get a Renegades t-shirt, that's crazy. Like a Valiant t-shirt, crazy. That's insane. Yeah. But we're starting to see this stuff happen. The fact that you could get a Captain Marvel mug, like from just a Hot Topic. Why? Because Captain Marvel's gonna be a movie. Yeah. And that's super fun.
And there's a trade-off, right? Which is things have to be more accessible, right? Like we saw this, like movies now are all have to be big blockbusters that can make millions and millions of dollars. But over the past 20 years, we in the geek sphere have seen this happen to video games in real time, right? As video games have gotten easier and easier, and they have more things holding your hand. Yeah. There are still tons, right? There's still this massive indie market. There's still plenty of punishing hard video games. There's still AAA video games that are hard. Dark Souls is super popular, but when there's things will need to be accessible, and that's why like. Batman's always going to be easier to read than something like Saboteur Eternity.
Yes.
Yes. And that I think like you're right. It benefits us in the long run. Sure, we can't necessarily do the things that Jim Aparo did, but that's okay because it means now we can have 5 fucking Batman books and Saboteur Eternity and Reborn and all this crazy stuff that couldn't happen elsewhere.
Yeah, no, it's amazing and I love it and. Even with video games, to a certain extent, them getting easier or approaching them as more of like an experience as opposed to like a rite of passage. That's why we have games like the Telltale games that are story driven and all it's about is like, it's like a visual novel. We wouldn't have had that game in the 90s. And it's not because of technology. No, that technology's existed forever. It's a very
they're real simple.
Yeah, they're simple games. It's because back in the day, it was about you have to earn your wings or whatever, and games were difficult. And it was about passing the level on to the next one and this and this and that. But because we've sort of said like video games aren't just for people who want to break controllers, they're for other people too. We can have casual games that are just about the experience that you have when you go through it. And that's
it's important for the community to be welcoming to all the things, right? And also that more experiences are better, right? Like I love like Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. it's just comics. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have the depth X-Men have, and I love that. That it's just like Guardians and Brainiac and Larfleeze, and who gives a shit?
Yeah.
It's awesome because I also have books like X-Men where Brian Michael Bendis is using Kitty Pryde to talk about what it's like to be a young Jew in America, you know? That means a lot to me too. And it's great that we can have all those things. And so yeah, it's important to remember that it's bigger. Like Just Cause 3, we could never have that game 20 years ago because it's just super duper easy.
Yeah.
And you just run around and blow shit up.
Yeah.
And that's one of my favorite games ever. I fucking love the Just Cause series because I like being a superhero that blows stuff up.
Yeah, and I agree that the text-driven games, I don't know if you realize that I specifically mentioned the 90s. Like, that was my exact point that I made. So if you want to be those guys that just sit there and refute me, that's fine. But in the 90s, when you look at like when gaming really ramped up and the PlayStation 2 was out and all this stuff started happening. Wait, was PlayStation 2 in the 2000s? I don't know, I'm old. But the focus on gaming shifted. And it wasn't about storytelling. It was about action and difficulty and graphics, and it changed. And so the 90s, when gaming really took off, was the focus of it changed.
March 4th,
and now
2000.
we're kind of coming back. 2000? I thought that was like the 90s.
I know, me too. But yeah.
Well,
I guess
even
it was,
PlayStation 1.
Yeah, PlayStation 1 and N64 though, it was that way too.
They weren't considered storytelling mediums.
There were totally text-based games, the story-based games, but you're right, they existed before games became mainstream, but that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Telltale Batman and Telltale Walking Dead
Yeah.
are fucking massive. Those are mainstream games.
Yes.
And that could not have happened, I think, ever, but especially, in the 90s, when it
90s,
was
yeah.
all action heavy. Like, all of art went through a grunge phase, basically, in the 90s.
Oh,
Music,
yeah.
comics, video
Yeah.
games, we all had to deal with that.
Yep.
We liked spikes.
And
for-
now
for
we're
a minute.
seeing like a return, even in the 2000s, you know, like
Yeah.
we had all these action-oriented games, and now we're seeing a return. I think that's why Portal was so revolutionary, because it was kind of like the return of puzzle games. Now, for those of you in chat, I'm not saying Portal was the first puzzle game of all time. I'm just saying it breathed fresh life into the genre.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of a generation where I fell in love with games through puzzle platformers, right? The N64 generation, Banjo-Kazooie, stuff like that. And so, yeah, for me, Portal was like, oh yeah, it's a game where it's about moving more than about attacking.
Yeah.
Which is like, it was all about the attack for like 15 years. And yeah, now they've become way more sophisticated.
I always say, like, when you go back to like
16 years ago, the PlayStation 2.
I know,
Jesus Christ.
but you know what's crazy?
It's like fucking with me.
Like, if you go back and play like PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games, with a few outliers, like, I don't know, like Parappa the Rappa and a few handful of them, most of them played the exact same, just with different characters.
Yeah. You mean from one console to the next, PS1 to PS2?
Wait,
You mean?
I mean, like, in terms of like individual games, they were all kind of like reskinned versions of each other.
Oh yeah, and like we're seeing that now with VR, I think.
Yeah.
Where like in VR, it's either, you're using a sword, using a gun and a shield, or you're picking stuff up, putting stuff down, and using the physics as a puzzler. Which, that's part of learning a new thing, is that like everything is kind of the same style of puzzle game. Yeah, Leisure Suit Larry was in 1987. Again, not as many people were talking about Leisure Suit Larry as they do about The Walking Dead.
Yeah,
we
these games are crazy relevant.
Acknowledge
now.
these games.
Also,
were
Leisure Suit Larry is gross. Vicken,
That's a good point.
why do my subs have to come into this chat and embarrass me?
You play a lot of Leisure Suit Larry. On your
No. God, what the heck? Leisure Suit Larry. There was like a Playboy game too.
Yeah, no. I
Don't get me
remember
started on those BMX Triple X and like these games that were just about nakedness.
Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball.
Yeah. Oh my God.
If there's any game that epitomizes issues with games, it's Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball. That they're like, hey, we have all these girls with boobs in our game. What if we just made them jump around on the beach for $60 a pop?
Yeah.
No, there was a Playboy game. I remember reading about it. I was subscribed to Game Informer throughout all of junior high and high school, and reading a review of it, and it was basically The Sims, but you're playing as Hugh Hefner.
Yes. Yeah. So there was a Playboy game. I have played it in the name of science when I was in high school, just to see what it was like. And you have to like romance. It was actually kind of creepy. You have to romance the models to get them to do main like centerfold for you. And it's weird because you have to have sex with them to get them to to pose in the game.
That's how you convince them to
Yeah.
be in your magazine?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you live in a mansion and
Yeah,
you have to like
that's
impress
quite the
them. Because
fantasy.
you know how like in Sims like you have to like have friendship meters? You have to like increase their like friendship towards you and then you have to do them and then only then will they pose as your centerfold.
That is so creepy.
Yeah. I remember playing it when I was young. I was probably like 15 or 14. I was like, I think I got this game by accident. Because it was
That's
so
funny.
weird. I was like, I hope my dad doesn't see me like playing this game.
In the name of science.
He's just gonna freak out at me. So yeah, I have played it. And Vic and I know you exist to troll me and I love it. So we owe a lot of our current jiggle physics to Dead or Alive. They're
Yes, we do.
another quality bronze sub. Thank you, Avok.
I mean, he's not wrong. We do owe a lot of our current jail physics to Dead or Alive, but again, that's the thing.
Like
that
tits that just go
Dead or Alive fighting game franchise is the pioneer on tits in video games. Like, that's what we're talking about, is that that is what they have done best. That's where they stand above and beyond the rest of their industry, is not gameplay, or story, or characters, or fighting. Nope.
Damn it.
It's boobs bouncing. That is the legacy of Dead or Alive. Congratulations on your franchise. Multiples of millions of dollars. Yeah. Anyway, when we're talking about comic books,
Yeah, I'm like embarrassed now because I described the premise of the Playboy game.
no, it's good. It's good. Somebody knows.
Money.
Graphic content is on. This must mean I am late to the #Seder-Krupp board meeting vote.
Oh no!
Hello, corporate sins tonight.
We appreciate your generous donation regardless.
Thank you. Yeah.
This is what they've done, breast.
Yes. that
Get
is
your
what they've done.
puns out of here, sir.
Okay, let's talk about the next poll. Is it yours or mine? It's my turn. Okay, my next poll of the year. I sort of had to again cheat. I chose this one issue, but it's the end of Chew is my other poll of the year. The last trade, I guess. This is the end of the penultimate trade. But this was the issue in which a really big character died in a really surprising way. In that this, like, it started out, you thought somebody was dead and they weren't, and then there was this whole thing where you thought somebody else was a bad guy, and it turns out they're dead, and the main character has to eat them to learn everything. And then the subsequent trade after it is some of the, like, best comic creation I've ever seen, where this guy whose power, Tony Chu's power is that he eats stuff and learns memories from it, eats this dude, and then this guy is telling him all the things he needs to know, the exposition for the end of the story, in flashback panels, as he's also still doing his normal day-to-day life. The last few, Chu was one of my favorite series ever, and it just had a fantastic run up to the end. So I'm sort of just gonna say, in general, the finale of Chew is my second pull of the year. John Layman and Rob Gilroy are brilliant, and I really hope they come back and do something again soon. Chew is brilliant. Aww. And hilarious. It's so funny. It's super good. It's about chicken.
I've actually read, I think, the first 3 trades. Those are 2 or 3 trades. I'm not current on it, though. I'm not current on Saga either, which is really a shame, because I was up until recently.
I read the first 2 trades of Saga.
You're gonna miss it, Coriolis. You're gonna miss our boob talk.
Yeah.
And you're gonna miss graphic content, sir. Don't pretend like you're not,
It's gonna be sad.
because you are.
Yeah, no. Chew's super good. Catch up. Yeah. No, I read the first 2 trades of Saga, and like I liked them, but I at the same time was like, this is really good, but I had never felt the same, oh my god, that most people feel about Saga. I was like, these are good comics. Yeah, and then I was like, but I've got all these other things I'm already invested in, and after 12 issues, I was like, these are neat characters that all still felt expendable to me.
Yeah.
That I was like, okay, I know that you 2 survived because this whole thing is being told by your daughter. And everybody else, like, it was fun to see, but I think I read it at the same time I was reading Why the Last Man, which is by the same writer.
Yeah.
And Why the Last Man is
amazing.
so good. And that, like, I was like, yeah, this is cool, but I was more just like, I mean, I already have my whole Green Lantern sci-fi mythos to care about, and I'm reading Descender, and so I couldn't get into it. And I feel like how a lot of people are with Chew, and I get that. A lot of people read Chew, and they're like, this is a really good comic that's like ridiculous and standalone, and I have 4 of those already. You know, because we all have so many of those.
Yeah. But there's some that come
yeah.
along every once in a
Yeah.
while that blow your mind.
They're just so good.
We all have those experiences. I'm trying to think of one right now that I was just like, what?
Well, we all had that together with Black Monday Murders.
Yeah, fair enough. That was definitely a what?
And I had that with Fables when I read. It was more like after the second trade of Fables when I really got into it. And they got their main artist. I was like, oh, this
man,
book's
I love
so
comic
good.
books. They've molded my whole life.
Right? Aren't they great?
Man.
All right. I'm on the right
I
screen.
remember the first time I read Watchmen.
Oh, yeah?
It was,
How old were you when you read Watchmen for the first time?
I was a kid, and I remember thinking, I was maybe 18 or 19. And I went on this Alan Moore stint right after. And I came from a really like sheltered Indian upbringing. So right afterwards, I read
So was that before or after the movie came
Promethea.
out?
Before.
Okay.
And then I read Promethea, and there's like some stuff in there that felt kind of like sexual and stuff. And I was like, I don't know if I should read this. Because I was like a little baby. I like how I say 19 is a baby.
That's what I was like, but you were like 18, 19. I think
Yeah,
I read
but-
Watchmen when I was 15 or 16.
Oh, okay, so you were young.
I was younger, but like, I don't know. It was more for me. It was more about like it was kind of my first like real comic.
Okay.
The only other one I'd really read was like Mad Love.
Oh, okay.
And so it was for me. It was just like, oh man, like it was my comics aren't and haven't been for kids in a long time moment. Where I was like, this book came out in 1985.
Yeah.
What? I thought Batman was for kids. You know, it was when I realized that the movies aren't anomalous by being adult. You know, that's what they've been doing since the 70s.
Bronze, how much did Dr. Manhattan confuse you in that movie? Me, a lot. Maybe because I had no clue about them. And then, well, I had read the comic before I watched the movie, so it wasn't as shocking to me, but I've heard a lot of people say that the big blue dong was like
I
jarring
don't
for
know
them.
anybody for whom they like didn't like that was like their first penis though, because that's like a story I want to hear. That's really amusing to me. But yeah, that's something said about like it's. I really like the Watchmen movie. I'm a fan of Zack
like it too.
Snyder's directing. I like his visual style. I understand why people hate it, but I also like don't. But I also think that the biggest pitfall of that movie, at least in comparison to the book, is that they basically eliminate the subtlety. There's a lot of subtlety to it. Like I love the opening with the times they are changing and the montage, but like they straight up show Dr. Manhattan killing Kennedy.
Yeah.
Which is just a perfect way of being like, there's none of that, maybe here. This is what's going on. And in the book, you only ever see Dr. Manhattan's penis like once or twice. It's from far away. He's not like a giant guy with his like cock filling up like 2/3 of the page. It's a good thing I'm wearing a blue sweater today. Like, you don't get that in the movie. Like, I saw this movie in IMAX with my mom. Oh my God. It was ridiculous. I was like, I don't remember that much dick in the book. Although I do remember being I was total like elitist music douche in high school. So like a musician, it was my whole identity, and feeling very smug about everybody freaking out about how they ruined Hallelujah with that awful cover in that song, and I was like, oh kids, that's that song that you love, Hallelujah. That's where it came from.
Yeah.
That was the original version, and Rufus Wainwright made it prettier. I like all the versions of that song, but that's a story for a different day.
all right.
So yeah.
what else?
Mind-blowing comics. It's great when you read a comic and it just totally changes your world. I feel like I've done that with comics and video games in a way I haven't really done with TV or movies.
Oh yeah.
Like,
video games are just
the occasional TV show like West Wing kind of changed my approach to writing and words. And then like, of course, when I saw The Matrix the first time when I was 12, it was like, what? Abstract concepts. But like, yeah, like so many comics and video games get me being like, whoa, like this is a thing I'm gonna be super focused on.
my life will never be the same.
I think that's why I can enjoy bad ones of both. Like, I don't enjoy watching a bad movie like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But I'll read a bad comic or play a bad video game
Especially
for
if you
way
know what
too
you're
long.
like getting into. I'm pretty ashamed of this, but I'll just let my immortal shame be broadcast on the internet. I am a big Planet of the Apes fan. Like the way people are about Star Trek and stuff, I'm that way about the original Planet of the Apes. I've watched the entire
Original Charlton Heston Planet?
Yeah,
Nice.
I'm a big fan of Charlton Heston. So like I'm a huge fan, and because of that, I go and watch the movies, the new ones, and I lower my expectations and I go and I'm like, okay, this is fine. I'm still waiting for when they'll actually be on a planet full of apes.
Well, the next one is...
That would be nice.
I think they just released like a poster of the next one. It's like war.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and they're like fighting each other with guns and stuff. And
I
I'm
feel
just
that
like, I miss the feeling of one man. I think the very first reboot film they had that, but I miss the feeling of one man being surrounded on a planet full of apes, because that's like infinitely more terrifying.
Which reboot was that?
That was like the first time they rebooted it, and then they rebooted it again, didn't they?
I think they've done it like 3 times.
Yeah.
Because they of course they had the original one. I think they rebooted it like twice, and then we have the current franchise.
Yes.
Because maybe there's just one reboot.
Matt Damon was
the
in
one
that. Yeah,
2001?
you're right. Matt Damon was in that first reboot.
Yeah,
And that's when he actually is on the planet and he's surrounded by the apes.
I'm gonna say this on air, because if you murder me, there'll be witnesses. The 2001 Planet of the Apes reboot is the only movie I've ever seen of Planet of the Apes.
Really?
None of the new ones,
You
none
never
of the
seen
original
like the
stuff.
original stuff?
Nope. That was
It's
my
not
only
a huge.
Planet of the Apes.
It's not like a huge fandom though.
But it's also so iconic.
It was Mark I mixed those two people
Oh,
up.
it was Mark Wahlberg and Tim Burton directed it.
That was Mark Wahlberg.
And Helena
Wait,
Bonham
which
Carter,
one is in the Big Hit?
Michael Clark Duncan.
Wait, is Matt Damon in the Big Hit, or is Mark Wahlberg in the Big Hit? That's the only movie.
Were either of them hits?
No, the movie's called The Big Hit.
Oh. The Big Hit was
One of them's kind of funny.
Mark Wahlberg.
Okay.
Yeah. Wahlberg's the
Okay.
funny one that like the Entourage bunch is based off of.
And then Matt Damon is the Bourne Identity guy.
Yeah, Ben Affleck's little buddy.
Oh,
That's what I think. He's like Ben Affleck's sidekick.
shit. Okay, I still
Yeah,
get
he's
those
the
two
Bourne
men.
Identity
They
guy.
look really similar to me, and I get them confused, and I don't know why. They have different personalities, but I get them confused. They're the same like Zach and Rai.
They are the same like that.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm just like, one of them I think is Ginger. Is one of them Ginger?
Sometimes Matt Damon is.
Is one of them Ginger? Okay,
Is Matt Damon a
anyway.
redhead? I mean, I feel like I see him in so much stuff that he with different hair. What about Dogma? Dogma's like
that?
my favorite Matt Damon movie.
Oh.
You seen Dogma?
Is that the one
Kevin
about
Smith?
them with Jesus?
Yeah, well, so yeah, the idea is like this: the main character is like the last descendants of Jesus.
Yeah.
And Chris
Okay.
Rock and Jay and Silent Bob
Okay.
escort her to fight George Carlin.
Okay.
Man, that movie's amazing.
Yeah,
it's
I've
not George
seen Dogma.
Carlin; it's Jason Lee. George Carlin
Neither
starts
have
Catholicism.
red hair?
Wow.
Are you sure neither of them have red hair? Okay, I give up. Comics. You guys are gonna make my brain melt. I know that I like the one in The Big Hit more, even though I can't tell the difference between them.
That one's
Fight
Mark
me about
Wahlberg.
it.
All right.
Fight me about my what is that called? Contradicting myself. So yeah.
I guess it doesn't have red.
Oh. Okay, I
There
know
you go,
them
Matt
now.
Damon.
We pulled up a
Put a picture of Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, no. Okay, now I know the difference between them. They don't look
Yeah.
that alike. So why did I have them confused in my head?
Yeah, it's from the Departed.
Movies. My head movies. Comics. What's the next pick of the year? Ha
This one was your last pick.
This one was my last pick of the year. It is Star Wars number 21. It is this particular issue in the Star Wars mythos. In the Star Wars run that happened this year. That's my favorite. Okay. What can I say? What can I say about this book or this issue in particular? First of all, I'm gonna break it down for you guys. Let's look at the cover art. Okay, it's gorgeous. It's iconic. It's beautiful. It looks like a poster you put on your wall. It was my favorite cover of the entirety of all of the Star Wars franchise comics. That includes the Han Solo run, that includes the Poe Dameron run, that includes the Londo run, and that's high praise coming from me. I think this cover was so gorgeously done. And the inside of the book makes it even better. You're basically following a platoon of stormtroopers through this sort of covert mission that they're doing, and you get to experience the Star Wars universe through the sort of lens of what is largely considered to be the villains. And one thing that I really like about this is it kind of casts a light on why, how do I put this? I never like black and white, as I'm looking at black and white and red cover, I never like black and white characters. And I think that mentality can be very harmful of thinking that things happen because a certain demographic of people are evil. I think that like thinking that, Trump was voted in because all Trump supporters are racist. I think that mentality can be very, very harmful. And so I approached kind of that way with the parallels in Star Wars between the stormtroopers and Nazism. There's a lot of really strong visual parallels there. And I think that it's really harmful and negative to think like, oh, well, everything that happened with the Holocaust happened because all Germans were evil. I think that it's that mentality allows, if you approach it that way, and like, well, they were evil and we're not, so that would never happen in America. Down that path lies darkness, my friend. And so this really brings to light why people maybe joined the stormtroopers, why they maybe support the Empire. And I really liked this comic for kind of framing it that way, because it's showing you the other side. And these stormtroopers treat the rebels like terrorists, because to them they are. And I don't really want to spoil anything about Rogue One, but if you watch Rogue One, you can very clearly see that the rebels could easily be viewed as terrorists. Yeah. And that
it's a war.
It is a war. And that viewpoint was absolutely mind-blowing to me. And seeing that these are the troops that conquered the universe. Like, they're not these idiots. Like, of course, I'm not going to dispute that the original trilogy, those characters have to have plot armor. Obviously, if a stormtrooper shoots and his aim is true, he's gonna shoot Han Solo and GG, right? So I like that we can do things in the comics that we can't do in the movies, and that is allowing the bad guys to win. And portraying these guys as the badasses that essentially helped win the war, because at the point that we're viewing the Star Wars universe, the rebels have kind of already lost. Yeah. They're in a very uphill battle. And I love that. This comic, I think, was the reason why there needed to be a Star Wars comic. Because what is the point of having a Star Wars comic if we're just doing the same thing that we're doing with the movies? And this comic showed a story that would probably never be made into a movie, because you can't market that. No one wants to watch the bad guys win. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to, see them be humanized and see them almost be like, oh, these are real people. The closest they can ever get to that is with characters like Finn.
Right.
Who
has
clearly
to become a good guy.
Who has to, and they even say like, oh, it's brainwashing and this and that and the other. But then,
even at the beginning, he won't kill. The other ones all do. He's so fundamentally different from the rest of them.
But they're all drones, and I think this comic actually really did a good job of showing them as not only capable, like tactical badasses that are crushing the rebellion, and it's actually kind of fun to watch them do it instead of a bunch of bumbling idiots that stumble over each other. Yeah. But it also did a good job of showing why people join the Empire. And that's why issue number 21 of Star Wars was absolutely amazing to me, and I loved it. And I feel like this is the point of having comic books based in movie universes, is to tell the stories of the films that will never be made. Mm-hmm. So I loved it, and I highly recommend checking it out. If you don't check out any other Star Wars comic, this is a really good standalone. So just read it and enjoy it, because it's great. And it's beautiful to have in your collection too. It's just such a gorgeous book.
Yeah, it's a really awesome cover. Star Wars 21. Beautiful. Yeah, it reminds me of when we talked about Captain America, when he came back and was, working for Hydra, or his memories were working for Hydra. Yeah. How a lot of that issue was also like, this is why people would work for Hydra.
Yeah.
How it's not the Nazi organization it was 70 years ago. Like, there's a great miniseries called Fallen Angels that with like Kitty Pryde and Boom Boom, a bunch of other characters in the Marvel universe, where the villain is like this woman who works for Hydra because they have benefits. Yeah. Like, basically, she was like, I don't have this other job. And so she's like this middle manager who's just in this organization who is trying to get this task done, and then the Fallen Angels like have to deal with it. She's like, I don't want to be a bad guy. I don't want to fight these ridiculous lobsters. There's 2 superhero lobsters. Fallen Angels is hilarious. but like I love that like yeah they just work for Hydra because Hydra was hiring, and there's a lot of people who like. I think this also goes into like when we admonish people who work for like Chick-fil-A or Woods Coffee because their CEOs feel a certain way. Like don't yell at your minimum wage cashier who's just getting the only job they can to pay fucking community college because the CEO who will never hear about your altercation bothers you.
Yeah.
You know, like it's important to recognize that, if there are bad eggs in a group, that we need to not admonish the whole group, and that also if a whole group feels a certain way, there will always be individuals in them who are part of it for their own personal reasons.
And I mean, I think that's why, to go back to Vanquished, right? I feel like that's why we don't have enough stories like that are told, and I do agree that I'm actually listening to some of the audiobooks for the Star Wars, and they're great. It's from some of that, I don't know if I could, it's not really fan fiction. It's
the extended universe. Yeah.
Yes. And, like, one thing I want to say is we don't have enough of those stories, and the reason I like it is because I think that was what the contention with Glitch's character on Vanquished, is people don't understand, like, there's not just good and evil, and there's a lot of gray in between. And to have a character who's like, I can change things and I can do it from the inside, and I'll do what needs to be done to get it done. Maybe that's why I love the Star Wars comic, because I like characters like that. I may not be that person, but I look up to characters like that, I remember when I first moved to Seattle and I was looking for a job, I didn't take it at Hobby Lobby just because I felt like they were so overtly Christian that I wouldn't be able to do it because I'm not. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but the whole concept of like, we're not open on Sundays because it's for prayer. I had this real moral dilemma of like, do I want to work for this company, and can I work for this company? Like, they clearly, I understand that practicing your religion is a right, but when you force it on your employees, is that a right? Now, there's a chance I could have taken that job and complained to my manager and lobbied for change. I actually went to college with a girl who worked at Hollister. And this was when Hollister was very popular. And she was a lesbian who was a little bit androgynous. And Hollister requires that you wear their clothing when you come to work. She lobbied for months on end for the right to wear men's Hollister clothing as opposed to women's Hollister clothing. And she won that fight.
Good.
And so now the precedent has been set that if you work at Hollister and you are a woman who doesn't feel at home in women's clothing, you can still work there and you can wear men's clothing. That is a valid strategy to change something from the inside.
Yes.
But there's also a dilemma
it doesn't mean
there.
it doesn't mean like if you're applying for a job, it's not your obligation to be the one person that fixes it from the inside.
Yes.
But it's why we need to not admonish people who are on the inside.
Yeah, because you don't know what's going on with them, and I love that about Star Wars. A lot of these stormtroopers have very tragic stories, and I want to hear about some of them. Some of them are like heroes. They've done some pretty amazing things to get to where they are now, and it's awesome.
Yeah, like, I mean, we forget, like, what were the stormtroopers for? They were the stormtroopers. They were the clones who saved us from the Trade Federation.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of what we learned in the prequels, was that the whole rise of the Empire looked like, and for all intents and purposes at the time, was a good thing. Yeah. Right? Palpatine used it to gain too much power and put a chokehold on the Empire, but there was this, like, super army of droids that wouldn't let anybody do any sort of commerce, and that needed to be dealt with. And that's like... And yeah, it's important to remember, like, that's who the clones were, that's who the people are. Yeah, they like you say about the Germans. If you sign up to fight for your country, that doesn't mean you're an expert on your country's politics. It's that simple.
Yep. And that's what I like about Star Wars number 21.
21. I'm definitely gonna read this issue now.
It's awesome.
All right, my last pull of the year is also just a solo issue that was just so good it deserved to be on here. Superman number 10, In the Name of the Father. This was the meeting of Damian Wayne and John Kent, the sons of Batman and Superman. They met at school, and then they broke into the Batcave, or rather, Damian drags John to the Batcave, and Batman catches him and is like, "You kidnapped Superboy? You gotta undo this before it's too late." And then right as he say that, Superman comes crashing through the cave, and he's like, "Where's my son?" And then both Batman and Superman are like, "Oh, our sons both fucked up. We need to yell at them." And it's just like super fun. I love these two characters. These, like, John Kent is definitely my favorite new character of the year. I love Damian Wayne is my favorite Robin as Robin. I love Dick Grayson, but when they are Robin, I love Damian. And so this book was just, everything I love out of Superman and Batman in like one issue, without any villains though. Like that's if you take all the villains, what's left is these men and their families. And I also like recognizing them as family men. Like they are, and they have been for like 60 years. And I love Super Dad. He's just so super and so dad at the same time.
Everyone says they look like they're about to kiss.
Which ones?
Batman and Superman.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can see some tension there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, I also it's so cute to see Batman, who's so short, clearly has a small man complex of like.
Right, yeah, like he knows he's not as big as Superman. He knows he never will be.
Bro.
What?
Phrasing.
What? Batman knows. Actually, Superman's got X-ray vision. You know he checked. You know he's compared and been like, Bruce. I like Kevin Smith movies. Anyway, Superman number 10. Superman and Batman do not make out in it, even though it looks like they're about to. Yeah, no, this was... I remember putting this down and being like, that was an almost perfect issue. I just enjoyed it so much. The art helped. I love Pat Gleason. You need to get it together for a second. You're gonna be okay?
I'm just imagining this locker room situation at the Justice League, and it's just... I don't want to think about that. It's your fault.
Well,
I don't want to have to rank them.
I didn't ask you to. There you go.
Because I'm like, where does Aquaman rank there? I don't want to have these. Where does Hal Jordan see?
So you're the one who's adding men to the locker room.
But you started that. That was you saying, look, if he was.
What? You brought up the fact that he has a small man complex, and I was like, yeah, Superman's bigger than Batman.
I was talking about height.
So was I, and then you made it all.
No.
I don't know which one of us started it. Batman probably has lead underwear.
I
That's what we
agree
can
with
land
that.
on.
He would not want anyone to know.
Yes. I mean, Batman would definitely have a cup underneath his tights, underneath his underwear.
Yeah.
Outside of his costume.
Yeah. I don't want to. Okay, let's talk about something else.
Aquaman.
Shrinkage.
But Aquaman's used to it. So those are our pulls of the year. I had Chew, DC Universe Rebirth, and Superman. Who had Snot Girl 7 to Eternity, and Star Wars number 21.
21.
Yeah.
I'm just reading chat, and it has gone so
far. I gotta give it to
into the
Forge.
pit of darkness.
Plastic Man. The shapeshifters get to win. Shapeshifters get to win.
Yeah, because they can change.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes. All right. Hey, some comics came out today, as well as over the past year. You want to talk about them?
Yeah. I'm just still reading chat, and now we're talking about like Batman's detective skills. Could he gauge? Okay, let's talk about this week in comics.
I don't think they know. I don't think they know because Batman doesn't. If Catwoman and Lois were closer, we might have a real comparison to make. But because they're not, we don't. So
New this week.
let's talk about what happened
Best
this
segue.
week. All right. What have we got here? Here's a book that you're a big fan of.
Yes, or not. I would say a huge fan of, but I do follow all of the Star Wars.
You liked
comics.
number 1 a lot. This one not as much.
I liked number 1 a lot. This one was pretty cool too. And this one, Dr. Aphra,
Dr.
basically.
Aphra 2.
Yeah, this is Dr. Aphra number 2, one of the books that came out this week. I like that basically you get to meet her dad, and you get to meet figure out that he's basically obsessed with his work, and that is why he has a very tumultuous relationship with his daughter. And you also kind of get to see these moments, and I kind of like that the setup coming off of the first issue of Dr. Aphra, which is that she is very morally not great, which as we were just talking about, it's kind of nice to have those characters, like the Han Solo-esque characters existing within the universe. And it was kind of a fun read. Nothing really happened. It was mostly just exposition between her and her dad, and I liked that about it. And it's basically a situation where her dad has poured all of his time into one particular project, and because of that, he neglected his wife and his daughter. And Aphra is very, very sore about that. And in this comic, he's basically kind of blackmailing her, kind of forcing her, / asking her to help him with this project, which is clearly a sore subject for her. She's not happy about that. But it's also like, yeah, it's a cool dynamic. I feel like in this one you get to learn more about Afra's past and who she is, even more so than the first one, which had flashbacks and everything. So I liked it. It was a good read. So far, a lot of the Star Wars comics have just been really good right out of the gate. So
good. All right. I'm going to talk about this one because it came out. Well, this isn't my poll of the week, but it was super duper good. Batman 13 came out today. I'm going to find my mouse. There it is. Batman 13 is the conclusion of the storyline I Am Suicide, which was sort of, it's not really the Bane arc, but I guess it was the beginning of a Bane arc. Batman went to go sort of bust Catwoman out of jail because Catwoman lied about being in jail, and then he went to go fight Bane. But this issue just had a lot of awesome Batman moments. Things have been going wrong with he Punch and Julie got all fucked up because he brought them on the team, and Bronze Tiger looked like he was going all evil, and then Catwoman was going all bad, and then this was the issue where Batman planned everything, and look, that person's fine, and look at what a badass Batman is, and when he's super broken, Bane leans down and he's like, what do you want to do now, Batman? Batman just looks at him and he's like, I want to break your damn back, which is what he's been saying the whole arc, is I'm gonna fucking break your back, motherfucker. And then Catwoman comes in and kicks his back and cracks it, and it's awesome. So it was just a great conclusion to all the Batman stuff you want at the end. It had a really weird and neat moment with Arnold Wesker, who is the ventriloquist. You usually got that little Scarface doll.
Yeah.
Right, and it's not quite clear if Scarface is him or its own entity or who's controlling whom. But in this case, it's just him by himself. And the Psycho Pirate, who is a villain that can make you feel emotions with his Medusa mask. He's you're feeling happy, you're feeling sad. The Psycho Pirate begins to manipulate him, and then he's no, bitch, and his hand just turns into Scarface. It is I'm Scarface. I control Wesker, and Wesker's just what the fuck? It's crazy. There's a lot of other stuff in the comic that happened. I just sort of breezed through some of the things, so it feels like more of a spoiler than it is. D&D, I promise. And that it's also, this was one of those, this story led to the conclusion that it was leading to in an obvious way. It also had a little bit of a tie-in for Justice League versus Suicide Squad. When there was a scene that sort of led to at least how Waller and Batman had the conversation that happens, that they referenced at the beginning of Justice League versus Suicide Squad, which also started today. And it was pretty good. Maybe we'll talk about it, but it wasn't good enough to talk about before other things.
Yes. I don't know if this came out this week or last week. I think it was this week. I'm off because obviously I had 2 weeks worth of comics to read.
I think it was last week.
Really? Okay. But I want to talk about it.
That's not necessarily it.
You should read Southern Cross.
But Southern Cross is... Oh, here we go.
No, it did come out today.
December 21st.
It did come out today. So, the Southern Cross number 10 came out this week. I totally knew that. Southern Cross is, I'm not going to get too much into the plot of this because it's really hard to explain to people who aren't following the comic, and I don't want to waste too much time on it. But I was originally turned on to Southern Cross about 3 weeks ago by our very own Steph, or Stafford Junkie, as you may know her on Twitter, from the Death from Above cast is where you probably know her from, or from Full Tilt. And she basically gifted me the trade paperback of this book. And I loved it. And it's every week, it never sort of fails me. It's just a really awesome book with really amazing art. And the premise is a woman who is trying to solve her sister's murder aboard this really crazy spaceship. And you guys know I'm totally into spaceships and stuff like that. It's got elements of I don't know if you guys watched the film Sunshine. It has some elements that are kind of like that, but yet it's also very much The Sphere. It's a little bit space horror, and for that reason, I love it. It's a good read. It's fun and it's easy to get into. Basically, you can pick up the first trade paperback and I think number 9 in this one, and you're up to speed. So check it out. It's fun. I like it. It's a little bit dark and gritty, and it has this really 90s art style that I just absolutely adore. So
Cool.
Do the thing.
Southern Cross.
Southern Cross. It's been like a surprise, like sort of like hit for me that I didn't think I was gonna be into, but then I loved it. I love space horror. That whole concept of like you can't escape, and granted the base they're on is huge, but you know, like you're on this floating object in the cold dead vacuum of space, and who knows what's out there. That's a cool feeling.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely
It's a cool
like,
setting for a lot of stories.
Yeah, it's really evocative. Like I don't really have many like phobia fears, but the only one that I really do have is the ocean. The ocean is the single biggest thing on this planet. And part of it is like my brother almost got like dragged out when we were kids. We went on a vacation, and like he's fine, but it like traumatized me in that kind of way.
Yeah.
That I'm like, oh man, because the ocean doesn't give a fuck. The ocean is so strong.
We don't know
it
what's down
give a
there.
fuck. It's not about what's in it. It's about the thing itself. Is that it's so powerful that if it decides you're gonna go over there too far away from land to swim, it's decided for you.
There's a reason
And
stories
space has
like
that whole
Cthulhu,
thing.
You know, Lovecraft wrote things like that. Like,
Yeah.
For me, it's that it's so dark and the pressure down there, like we don't know what's down there. Like the whole like Pacific Rim thing of like kaiju coming out of the ocean, I was like, I would believe it because we don't know what's down there.
Yeah.
For the longest time, we knew more about outer space than we knew about the ocean. I don't know if that's still true, but for the longest time, that was true. And that is terrifying when you think about it. That this thing is right there. It's right there. And we know close to jack shit about it.
And I think that's part of why I think a lot of horror in space like ties into the idea of the unknown and the vastness of it, right? That's like, to me, you know, the idea of being in a spaceship in space is very much like being on a ship on the ocean, and you can just see nothing.
There's a lot of commonalities there. You can't
around.
breathe. Just by virtue of being in it, you can die, and that is terrifying. It's terrifying. I actually don't know how to swim, and
really,
I had a friend of the family when I was really young who drowned herself in Crater Lake. She was swimming and her hair got caught in the reeds at the bottom of the lake, and she couldn't come up for air. And because of that, and hearing that story, and it terrified me, and I still am a little bit afraid of the water.
That'll do it. I don't blame you.
Yeah, it's scary. I don't feel comfortable in the water. I've taken swimming lessons and tried, but I completely understand this concept of like being afraid. Yeah. And the concept of swimming in the ocean.
Right?
Like it's one thing if it's like
stuff.
Yeah, it's one thing if it's like, you know, a pool. Like that doesn't terrify me, but like the ocean.
See, this is why we live up here. People don't pressure you to swim.
Yeah,
in Seattle.
Yeah, we like in California it's different, but
you gotta
like,
go to the beach. It's
in
not
Washington, it's like snowboarding and that's it.
Yeah.
Good, because I don't want.
I'm not scared of the mountain.
I don't want to surf, and the concept of like, and then I see my mom too. She took me to the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and it's like a really nice, big, beautiful aquarium. And I saw like my first squid, and it was like in this. They have like this room that's like all glass, and I was just like. I had like a panic attack because I thought of this strange, like octopuses are like all muscle.
Yeah. And they're big and they have tentacles.
Yes, and suckers. And they have beaks. Do you know they have beaks?
They do.
They have beaks. Why? Of course, there's like Cthulhu does exist and he's in the ocean right now. Don't get me started on that.
Okay, yeah. The ocean's scary,
anxiety
kids.
About the ocean.
All right. Let's talk about, okay, this is my poll of the week. Divinity number 3. It's finally here. The Stalinverse.
I picked up a different cover than yours. Do you want to see my cover?
Yes. This I have this
cover?
version. This is
You have
the
that one?
standard one with it's got Divinity and
They had like 5
all the Russian
covers
versions
at
of some of the Valiant Heroes.
comic book shop. I chose this one. It's very
Ooh.
80s, right?
I like it.
Isn't that nice? It was probably the least fancy of all of them. I'm gonna put it over my face, but I really liked it. It was like.
I like it. It's very, very much like when you know like what Divinity is, the cosmonauts in space.
Yeah.
Like it's a really cool like I could see that being just that cover as a poster with just Divinity on it. You know, like coming 2017. I'd be like, I'm gonna see what that's about. So yeah, Divinity number 3 finally started, and it's just those of you who read Divinity 2 know it sort of Divinity 2 ended with the second Divinity character creating the Stalinverse basically, and like sort of fixing it. So the very first page is this Stalinverse timeline. Yeah. That sort of, because what Divinity 2 did was basically retcon powers.
I didn't do my nose.
Was a retcon in Russian history. So things like in 1922, Stalin assassinates Lenin, becomes the leader of the Soviet Union, and then Soviet Union envelops all of Europe except for Great Britain in 46. I like this one of, what is it? JFK is assassinated. The rebel leader JFK is assassinated off the coast of Cuba. Joe McCarthy is a puppet president that Russia installs. So that's the Stalinverse. So the first issue is basically us seeing the Stalinverse. We don't really, I guess on the last page or the last sort of few pages, we begin the story of how we upset the status quo. But because it's this whole new world, the first issue is establishing the status quo. Mm-hmm. So we see it all through a sort of a series of interviews. The leader of the Politburo or whatever, the politic KGB, whatever, is a guy named Agent Colin King, whom we know as Ninjak. And so Ninjak interviews a few people after they went off and put down some, rebellions. He interviews Peter Stanchek of Harbinger. He interviews Arik of Exo Manowar, or Eric. He interviews Exo Manowar. And the first one he talks to is Bloodshot, Commander Bloodshot, with big hammer and sickle on his chest. So we see Exo Manowar, we see Bloodshot, we see some of the Russian Shadow Man. We get a sense of this new Russian Valiant universe. And then at the end, we sort of see where this rebellion is going to come from. And we see where Divinity, the main Divinity, has been and why he hasn't fought back yet. I love Divinity. I love the first two. I'm super excited about this and all the tie-ins and the bigger Stalinverse, Divinity-verse thing. I feel like it's gonna end with just everything going back the way it was, except for like maybe one or two new characters. Like, hey, now I'm a hero in the Valiant universe. Mm-hmm. But it's. I mean, if just like Divinity 1, I hope it's just this super well-contained, crazy cosmic thing that you don't expect. Really good. So yeah, Matt Kint continues to crush it with Divinity. That's my pull of the week.
That's your pull of the week?
Yeah.
What did I say my pull of the week was? Oh, I know. It was Klaus.
Klaus. Yeah, this one was narrowly beaten out by Divinity. Love Klaus.
This is fun. So Klaus actually that run ended.
Yeah, Klaus
and
was
this
a
is almost
6
like
or 7 issue series.
This is a one shot, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's a one shot Christmas special.
Oh yeah, epic oversized. So this is actually I agree with the description right there. It's a perfect comic book fan stocking. It's a self-contained story. You don't actually have to know a whole lot about Klaus to understand it. And it's beautiful. It has like a nice, it's not like your normal floppy cover. And okay, so the reason I like it is even as I'm not anti-Christmas, I'm just not as gung-ho about it the way a lot of people are. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that gets misconstrued a lot of time. I don't hate Christmas. I'm not as into it because I didn't grow up with a family who really celebrated Christmas.
You also, you didn't grow up in America, right?
No. So because of that,
it's like I see Christmas as fundamentally, at least the Christmas I celebrate, that my culture celebrates, is a fundamentally American holiday. It's not even that Christian anymore, right? It's a capitalist society taking our capitalist energy and focusing it on giving for a month. You know, to me, that is the holiday. And so, I understand, and
I mean, my parents used to put up a tree and give me gifts so I wouldn't feel left out, but after I was old enough to understand, we're not Christian, the tree went away, and then it was just gifts, so I wouldn't be the only kid at school who didn't get anything. So I'm totally into giving gifts to my friends, and all that stuff is fine. But as far as being into Christmas, that's not me. That being said, I like a lot of the Christmas legends, and this one was fun because it brought a lot of them in. It brought in Spoonlicker, who is I think it's an Icelandic thing. I briefly saw a video because my significant other is into Eve. And the EVE Online group kind of did this Christmas special where they dressed up as the 12 goblins of Christmas, and they were trying to show that Christmas is not just your classic fat man in a red suit type of thing, and that sometimes it's more creepy. And I mean, more recent times, the Krampus has been taking off, and we've been learning more and more about these Christmas legends. And if there's anything that I love, it's a good
Krampus
folk
is
story.
Trendy now.
Yeah, he's got a movie and stuff. And I remember when I used to talk about Christmas, when I used to talk about Krampus, people didn't even really know who he was. And then he was in the Venture Brothers, and nobody got that reference either of who Krampus is. And now
then,
it's
and then Harry Potter was Krampus.
Yeah.
Now we know Krampus.
Now we know Krampus. So I like this because it actually brings in some of that really cool Christmas legends, and it's just a really fun, feel-good comic. Basically, Klaus decides to rescue this little girl who's been is kidnapped by the Witch of Winter, and she's going through a rough time in her life. You know, her mother's passed away, and her dad is struggling to just keep his family together and be help them have a good Christmas. And Klaus comes in and saves the day in classic Santa fashion, but he does it with a giant sword and by breaking chains and this strong, muscular Santa Claus body.
I referred to this series, when it was coming out, I referred to this series as two things. One is All-Star Santa Claus, because it's a Grant Morrison book and it's very much, you know, this is why Santa Claus is super awesome. But I also have been calling it just Sexy Santa Claus. Get my sexy Santa fix, because it's like the sexiest Santa Claus.
Yeah, he's this giant, like Nordic man who throws down. And so it's honestly, and he has like this beautiful white wolf that is his best friend. So it was just this really awesome book. The art was great. And if you want like just something that's feel good Christmassy, this is awesome. I actually had a good time with it, even though I'm not a Christmas fan. It was just fun. And there is even a moment where he's like telling this little girl who's just so sad and depressed with everything that's going on in her life, like, you know, her brother's like, Santa Claus is real. And it's like this beautiful moment where it's like, he is real. And there's also this funny moment with the dad being like, okay, so how do you deliver gifts to everybody? And he's just like, well, I stopped because there's too many people in the world. And also I helped deliver them by like having, or what did he say, having agents that do it for him.
He said the other Santas and the parents.
And the parents.
Which is like, you've got mall Santas and parents who provide the magic of Santa and Christmas every year.
Yeah,
he's
but
like,
that doesn't mean he doesn't
I didn't give up, I just had help, is what he's saying.
Is what he says, And he says the world population is too large, but thanks to parents like you and like other agents of Santa, he's able to kind of keep Christmas alive, and I liked it. I think it's a really fun book.
Like if and there's a great line where someone says, Santa's not real. It's like, well, your dad's real, right?
Yeah,
like, he's
so
real.
Therefore
like,
Santa is real.
Like if you woke up on Christmas morning and went down, there were a bunch of presents that weren't there before. The feeling you got still came from someone.
Yeah.
When you can still think.
Yeah.
You know. By the way, so it looks like there were, it is Icelandic, the Yuletime Lads.
Ah, Yuletime Lads, that one.
Showed up during the last 13 nights before Christmas, and Spoon Liquor is one of them.
Spoon Liquor is one of them. So I had seen the funny little video of like each day they introduced a different one of the lads, and they're kind of creepy. And in this book, Spoon Liquor is really creepy.
Spoon Liquor's really creepy. He's like the apprentice, or he's like the assistant or the steward of the White Witch, and he's all like,
And so awesome. I really like it, and I think if you're looking just for a cute little stocking stuffer, a little add-on gift for that comic book fan in your life, give them this one. They'll probably have a really good time with it.
And if you haven't read Klaus, you really don't need to worry about it. In fact, Klaus, the main series, the original series that started last year, it was 7 or 8 issues. It takes place. It's actually not even Christmas, because it's really just Yule time. It's all of the mythologies that Christmas is sort of co-opted. So it doesn't have anything to do with the actual Christian story of Christmas.
Yep.
But it's more about the idea of Santa Claus and that mythos and the Icelandic stuff. But it all takes place kind of in the past, this sort of Yuletime Christmas village. This book is today. It's like the 2 people in an apartment and their dad is like pretending to be Santa Claus. So like it's just, you can read it if you haven't read Klaus. If you have read Klaus, you'll enjoy it because it's Morrison and Mora doing more of what they do. But it stands alone really well.
It does. Yeah, because I'm not up to date on Klaus. I think I read like the first 3 and that's it.
Yeah. No spoilers at all.
I understood it completely, and it's great. So try it out.
Yes. Klaus and the Witch of Winter. Yeah, really fun. And this is like a really new artist. After Klaus first came out, I was like, this artist is so impressive that I looked to see, what else has he drawn? And it's very little. So could definitely expect to see more of him from the future.
Look at him, he's such a creepy
little Spoon Liquor. Yeah.
Spoon Liquor is creepy. He's like the stuff of nightmares.
Super creepy.
What else came out this week? I read Harbinger. It was good.
Oh, Harbinger Renegades?
Yeah.
Is that number 2?
Yeah, it's number 2. And honestly, my biggest takeaway from it was I loved like seeing, here, I'll show it to you. I loved seeing the downward spiral of Peter Stanchek and why he kind of does what he does, because I wasn't super up to date on that. And seeing him sort of like detox or like get the drugs out of his system was a really interesting bit. But it was, I don't know, this comic was really cool. It also shows them like kind of tracking down and putting together, just read the comic. It's them like it shows like this guy who was working for Harada and why he branched off and tried to sort of accelerate the process of activating Psyot's like innate abilities. And it's the comic is mostly focused on him and how he sort of stole the secrets from Harada and got the papers and started tracking down these young, impressionable Psyots and is selling them this dream of like, you can be a hero. And he literally says like, you can be Faith. And he gets these really young, impressionable people to come with them. And then he's subjecting them to these really awful experiments. And 3 of them have already died. Mm-hmm. And they also kind of talk about Chris and how guilty she feels because she feels absolutely 100% responsible for the deaths of these people, for these kids, because she was the one who had Axe release the Harada papers. So it's a really good book. I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. And you get to see Peter Stanchek float around in outer space.
Which is always awesome.
Psyop bubble. Yeah, a lot of this comic was him and him talking about cleaning up.
That makes
up
sense. Because the first issue was also very much about the rest, right? It was about Chris and Axe and fighting and Faith and fighting, everybody together.
Well, it ends with her being like, if you're out there,
Yeah, it ended with Peter just being out there. So now we got to see where Peter's been since, during all this Imperium stuff that happened. Mm-hmm. Give me the fire suppression water.
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to drink it so that they can't suppress the fire.
I also got my mail away coupon number 2. So now I have the number 1 and number 2. So they're putting these coupons in the comics where you can like mail them in and get a special comic, which is Harbinger Wars 2-0.
Oh, I'm excited for Harbinger Wars 2.
You can tear it out of the comic and mail it in. It's kind of cool. It's very
cool. Man, speaking of things that Valiant does from the 90s, they just announced they're going to be doing another like a painted metal cover.
Yes, of Exo Manowar.
Of Exo Manowar number 1.
Yeah, which looks awesome.
Looks awesome.
It looks amazing. And you were just showing me yours.
Yeah,
and now they're bringing it back.
The holographic covers I have from the 90s. Right? Yeah, I'll have matching Exo Manowars.
Because I saw Valiant tweet that out, that they were going to bring back the metal covers, and it was literally like 1 or 2 days after you showed me your Exo Manowar number 1 with the metallic cover, and I was like...
Yeah.
The timing on that was
look
insane.
at that. It's uncanny.
Mm-hmm,
so Harbinger, I gotta catch up. I'm like behind on all my Valiant stuff. I'm like 2 issues behind on Ninjak. I haven't read today's Bloodshot yet. I haven't read today's
Bloodshot either.
Oh man, Bloodshot USA number 3 was today.
Bloodshot isn't like, I don't hate it. It's just not up my alley. I think the only ones I'm always up to date, or like that I really enjoy, or I am up to date on as of right now, are like Eternal Warrior. I like that, and I like Faith just because it's like a really safe, just like comic. And I just saw
we're talking about feel good comics, like
it's just really
it
plays it really safe, and because of that, like you can just know that you're gonna pick it up and it's gonna be good. It'll never. I feel bad things. I don't think it'll ever blow my mind. But I think one day one of my picks of the week was a Faith comic because like she goes to a convention and she's in cosplay with Archer and it's adorable.
Yeah, it's not like super impressive, but it feels like home.
Yeah, and I like that about it.
Yeah.
So
and also like
it's
Faith,
fun.
I would read a Faith and Archer series. Like I would read that shit weekly.
And it's funny because Archer and Armstrong Volume 2 came out today. I believe it launched today, and the cover is like the Archer and Faith like
Archer
looking
and Faith
at each
date.
other.
Yeah,
it's really
that
cute.
date issue is so much fun.
It's really cute.
Okay,
so I like that book.
What else came out? Oh yeah, Justice League versus Suicide Squad started today.
Oh, I didn't even pick that up.
Yeah, so it all went down basically exactly how we would have thought for a number 1 like this. So there's this big advertisement. This is a book from last week. This is Hal Jordan from last week, but I'm pulling it out because of this big advertisement that came out.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I never unfold those.
These dudes. Look at this. Oh, I'm only one man.
Holy crap. Here, I'll help you.
Here we go. Okay. So this are... Look at that. Look at all of that. So this is this big fold-out ad for Justice League versus Suicide Squad.
Holy crap. I think that folds back.
And, and so what we've got here, we can go through them kind of one at a time. We've got the character Emerald Empress, who is a witch who is usually in the future. She's a Legion of Superheroes villain, which is particularly exciting to me because I love the Legion. They've been gone for a long time, except for Saturn Girls just in Arkham Asylum. So you've got Emerald Empress. We've got Lobo, who is Lobo.
He's not Pretty Boy Lobo anymore.
No, he's not Pretty Boy Lobo.
He's normal Lobo.
He's Wolverine in space. There's this, I feel like Rumset or Ramset or some guy with a flaming sword who just like is a guy with a flaming sword. Don't worry about him. He's just a guy with a flaming sword. He doesn't show up a whole lot. Maxwell Lord at the center, who started the Justice League International in the 80s, and then in Infinite Crisis turned out to be like kind of evil and had mind controlling powers. Dr. Polaris, who is the shitty Magneto of the DC universe. That's what he is. Sorry. Johnny Sorrow, who wears like a red suit and like is like just like a red mask that's like disembodied and floating, which is just like one of the cooler character designs of the DCU. Then Eclipso, who's like evil and his name is Eclipso, and like that's kind of his thing. So there's been this ad with these characters, but none of them are on the Suicide Squad. So Justice League versus Suicide Squad is exactly what you would expect. Maxwell Lord assembles those characters in a way that's like they're all in shadow. We don't see any of them till the end of the book, and I'm like, okay, but like there's this
He's
big
in the
fucking
background there on the cover.
Yeah, he's in the background on the cover, and there's this giant fucking 9-page ad that I just looked at that showed me the lineup. So like, it's weird that it was all shadowy in the beginning when I was like, well, we knew the lineup.
The suspense isn't there, Betty.
Yeah, but it's okay because that was just an advertising thing. Whereas he assembles this team. The Justice League discovered the existence of the Suicide Squad and go to be like, hey, we're gonna take them out, and then Task Force X is there, and they're like, what are you going to do? Throw us in jail?
Yeah, we're already in jail, buddy.
And so then, of course, because it's comics, they have to start fighting. They'll really fight it out next issue. It's just conversation about those kind of plot points. Justice League, Suicide Squad, Maxwell Lord is doing this other thing. The language Maxwell Lord uses is very interesting. It seems like he might be aware of Rebirth. It seems like he might remember the things he did before Rebirth. And it seems like he might remember the Justice League International. So I have no idea how or why, but that's interesting to me because I love Maxwell Lord's story from Infinite Crisis on, and I can't believe it's not the Justice League, and I forget the one that tied into Brightest Day, but that one was really good. So anyway, I'm excited about it. It's neat. It's not like spectacular, but it's still like it's better than Civil War. I'll say that. I feel
like
bad.
Our new standard.
But
Is
like,
it better than Civil
it's
War?
better than Civil War at the very least. And it's Justice League versus Suicide Squad. Even with the advertising, they're doing this, but they did this like a week before. DC even feels like they know this isn't this is not on the level of Forever Evil or Civil War or big crossover. And they're not trying to make it. This is a crossover between two books. This is not a big DC event, is what it feels like.
Yeah.
There's gonna be another book, a Justice League of America, JLA, is gonna actually spin out of this event. And so it's like, it's one of those stories that does that thing. It's fun. I hope it'll be more fun. But it was just a book.
There you have it.
If you care about the big plot lines of the DC universe like me, then you will care about this book.
What else came out this week? Invincible Iron Man #2 came out this week. I have feelings about it. It's weird. I don't like saying I don't like when people say oh, we hate this book. I don't. I'm happy that Riri exists. I just wish she wasn't wearing this suit and masquerading as Invincible Iron Man, which is not. There's one gripe I have with this comic in general, and I don't know why they took it this direction. In this comic, they have basically Riri is in her suit that Iron Man proceeds to insult about how it looks like she made it out of foam core and glue. And he kind of challenges her because he's now uploaded his sentience as an AI into a computer. And he is the AI in her suit because she keeps saying she needs an AI to run her suit. So I'm like, of course, so whatever. She's basically Iron Man now. And
so she doesn't have the suit that's been on the cover. For
no,
two
I don't know why they
issues,
put that on the cover
and
because she
we've been
doesn't
seeing
have
it
that
for
suit.
months.
It's just giant marketing gimmicks. She's not in that suit. She's in her suit of her own make.
I would actually be more interested if they showed the suit she's in is clunky and
Yeah,
big and
she looks
gray.
like a Transformer.
And I feel like
or
that would
Voltron.
actually be way better. If
Yeah,
they
no,
did
I agree.
that
She would be
instead of-
different than just another chick in the Iron Man.
Because that really
suit.
just looks like girl Iron Man, and the suit that we see now
This looks
at
more
least
original.
feels more
but
unique.
But this giant metal Voltron suit is not going to sell comics.
Yeah, and
the way that
also-
because that's controversial.
The giant Voltron suit is not gendered. You cannot tell
No,
the gender
you
of the
can't
person
tell who
is.
she is
You
in it.
can't find that suit sexy.
Yeah, you can't. And it's there's something to be said about the power of she made that suit herself. And I'm willing to acknowledge that I have respect for her making her own suit. And I think it's bullshit to sit here and have her constantly advertised as being in Tony Stark's suit because she didn't make that.
Yeah.
And it's basically saying we put this chick in this suit. Be upset about it, which is upsetting because basically what it's saying is anybody could put on the Iron Man suit and be Iron Man, which is not true. And I
Right.
think what gives this character sort of some spine is the fact that she did make her own suit, and she's not using one of Tony's cast-offs. So advertise her that way. Is it so bad to do that? And so one thing.
Like, how great would a cover be of her in her suit standing on a bunch of red and yellow Iron Man suits just in a pile on the ground? Right?
Yeah.
You could have a whole bunch of covers of her with broken down Iron Man stuff.
Yeah.
Or, her working on a suit. And, these covers are fine for issue 6 when we'll finally see the fucking suit probably.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it's like, it's kind of like this big ad with Justice League versus Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to make this the big thing, recognize it. It's okay to start out with it, but don't, pretend that you're not when you already did.
Yeah. So I didn't like that part of it. The other thing the reason that I like these sort of young kids like the champions is because they tackle crime on a different level, and it's fun. It's like when Spider-Man first came out, you get to see like, that's just fun, and it's hard to replicate that. Like, I like Spider-Man with where he's at now. He deals with really important issues, right? And I like where Miles is going, and but right now, when you look at these kids, like the champions, one of their most, in my opinion, appealing factors is they're not fighting Thanos. They're fighting there's like a safety net there and a happy-go-luckiness of where the cosmic universe is not at stake. They're just kind of taking out crime on a street level, and it's fun, and it's really like comic book meta, and I like it. And I was hoping that since they've put her in the Champions, or she's not actually in the Champions, but she's made appearances in that comic, that she was gonna go that route. No, right out of the gate, they have Tony Stark challenge her with all of his suits at one time, and she beats all of them. And so it immediately sets up this part where she's immediately good at what she does, and I kind of wish they hadn't pushed that angle. I wish that she had sucked more. And the whole issue starts with that premise of she really sucks at this. And that's fun because we haven't had an Iron Man that's absolute trash in a long time. One of my arguments with Iron Man is that he's too perfect, and I think he needs to be a villain now. And I've said that so many times that I think he would make just the greatest villain. But anyways,
I think it would have happened if the movies didn't. After Civil War, I think he would have become I think that would have happened if 2008
and the whole book
didn't
they
happen.
did with his extremist tech, or what is it called, Superior Iron Man?
Superior Iron Man, yeah.
And they were going that route of he's gonna be a villain. He's so self-absorbed, and he's so confident in his abilities, and he has this crazy mentality of there's aliens out there with better tech than us, and there's mutants, and how do we keep the human race relevant? Oh my God, that is the perfect Hitler-esque, hello? I could see him warring against the mutants. I could see him warring against the Inhumans, which they were leaning towards that. I wanted to see this
nope,
man
I remember
as a villain.
Civil War, so I'm too afraid to do anything.
Which was bullshit. If you're gonna take my favorite character and give him a send-off, give him the send-off he deserves, and turn him into a villain and have him taken out by the entire team.
Yeah.
That's
it's funny,
what he
that
deserves.
line of Civil War actually sort of explains, since Civil War, he went so evil, and then the movie came out, he had to be likable, and now he's just Captain America in a suit.
Yeah.
But he's not as good at being Captain America as Captain America is.
Yeah, I like that most people were Team Captain going into the Civil War movie, because that's why I like Tony Stark. He's a little bit of an anti-hero. He's a little bit of an asshole, and that's what I like about him. That scene where he's Spider-Man's hugging him, and he's no, I'm opening the door for you, get the fuck out.
Yeah, this
I
isn't a
love
hug.
that.
That's a good Tony, yeah.
That's Tony a little bit. We get glimpses of him in the films. Yeah. So with this, by having her kind of destroy those suits right out of the gate, they've already set the precedent that she's incredibly capable. And they even say that she took out all the old Iron Man suits in one fell swoop. We gotta take her out. And I'm just kind of I kind of wanted her to do what Kamala did and fight street crime for a while and be generally bad at things, and then over a year get the I guess the grit or something to have a major villain pop in and have her be able to deal with it. That would have been cool. The other thing I don't really like about it, or actually no, the one thing I did like about it, I started that sentence the wrong way, is how she takes out the suits. She's just kind of running from them, and she's really bad at the combat portion of it, and how she takes them out is with the virus. While she's buying herself time, she's programming a virus to infiltrate the suits' AI and make them all crash to the ground. That was cool, because what it's showing is Riri is not Iron Man, and she's her own character, and she fights in her own way. And I, once again, really wish they'd put her in her own suit and give her her own name and have her, which they have Ironheart, and have her be her own separate entity. I don't understand. This comic, I don't want to buy it because I feel like they're pushing this weird, there's glimpses of in it where I can see the potential for a great book and a great character and greatness. But then I see them kind of just like flip up the middle finger to that and say no. And it's also insulting to see her destroy all the Iron Man suits in 30 seconds when she's been a superhero for literally like a week.
Yeah,
Don't talk down to the characters that we have.
I also think that someone said about like it shows of, again, this is like we're talking about why more representation is important. In order to have a strong female character, that doesn't mean you have to have a woman who is absolutely flawless from day one and everything she does is amazing. Like, that's not a character. That's just a fantasy, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's, oh, she's 12 and she's a super genius and she's better than Tony Stark is after his entire fucking career. Like, that's now a character, like, I'm not gonna feel a lot of suspense going forward if she beats all of them day one. It's like, well, okay, so now what? All of Iron Man's villains are supposed to be a threat to her, but if she could take down Iron Man and the entire history of Iron Man.
And I like, and once again, I want to reiterate, I like how she took the suits down. She takes them down with the virus, not by fighting them, which I think is important. But I want to see...
Should have been like, it took down one, and then Tony was like, all right, that's good enough, we're calling it now.
Puts up his firewall or something, you know? Or
like, oh, you stopped one of the robots.
I like the concept of her being a better programmer than him. I do like that concept. I like the concept that maybe she doesn't beat him at being Iron Man, but she beats him at being Riri, and that is a completely different character. But then stop,
and a good generational
stop with
gap,
these covers.
Right?
Stop
He's a builder
with
and she's a typer.
Yeah, like have her have more
like
gadgets. Have her suit maybe not just be rockets and repulsors. Have her suit have more tech base. Make her like a kind of like Glitch, where maybe she manipulates tech and stuff like that. And I just kind of wish that they had gone more that route. They do have some like flashbacks which seem a little forced. It just seems a little forced. Like some of her, like they're trying to just do random flashbacks and force in this story, but you're forced to care about characters that you kind of haven't had enough. Like they show one of her best friends dying, but they don't like tie in how that's affected her or how that's molded her. It's just kind of like this isolated event and how she's sad about it. And we don't spend enough time with that character for us to be truly crushed by it. Whereas like just Bruno and Kamala, like that scene from last year where Kamala basically tells Bruno like they can never be together. I literally cried, and it hit home on so many levels because it was just so special, and nobody died and nobody got killed, but it was such good writing, and it was writing that took place over the course of a year of the love between these two characters, that pure friendship. And that comic has made me feel like feelings, you know, and like right at the beginning when the new book, the new run, he has a new girlfriend. And how Kamala is so mean to that girl, and she actually like body shames her. Once again, flawed character. She's so jealous that she calls the
teenage girl.
She calls her fat, and it's so mean coming from your your favorite character. Like, but you're also like, this is why this is why I like comic book characters, because she's a teenage girl and she's jealous and she's mad and she's like, really. I mean,
that's why we all love like Kitty Pryde when she runs away, gets all embarrassed all the time when she first shows up at the X Mansion, and it's so great because like that's actually after, especially like I imagine in the 80s after you've been reading X-Men and Stan Lee was trying to write kids and he's so bad at writing kids. You get Kitty who's just like, Xavier's a jerk, and she's like, you know, she closes her eyes and phases through the danger room. Like that's so much better than, oh, I'm Scott Summers and look at me. I mean, I love Scott Summers, but like I understand he's not the same.
Even in Battle of the Atom, I loved that. I loved seeing Baby Jean and Baby Scott be like, you know, they're sitting here having this conversation about how they're gonna send them back in time, and they're like, we don't want to go. And what do they do as normal teenagers? They run away because they don't want to fight the X-Men. That's never even an option. They run away. And I love it. I like seeing those types of moments, and I wish we had time to develop that feeling for Riri, where maybe her friend doesn't die right out of the gate. Maybe she sticks around, and maybe she helps her with her adventures as Ironheart, and then maybe have her pass away. But I feel like it's such a cop-out to have these supposedly emotional flashbacks where it's like her crying at the hospital, because you just feel nothing.
Yeah, we don't know to be invested.
Because you have no context.
Okay, we are just about out of time. Before we go, because this is our last show, I want to ask you, your recommendation. Do you have a book that you think everybody should love and is just amazing and people should read, but just not enough people are paying attention to it?
Not enough people.
Not necessarily
you go
like
first,
an
and then
ongoing
I'll think
one.
of one.
I have a book that's like, it's my mission to get everybody to read this book. It's called 52.
You've mentioned this before.
I mentioned this before. There was, after Infinite Crisis, there was this sort of time jump in all the DC books called 1 Year Later, where Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman all took a year off. of being Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Batman like kind of refollowed his original path of training, but did it with the Robins. To sort of tap into them. Wonder Woman needed to have like a animated Martian Manhunter moment where she sort of learned what it was like to be human again, because she's been a god for so long. Yeah. And Superman flew through a red sun into a field of kryptonite, so he was depowered for a year. So 52 fills in that year, 1 week at a time, and each issue is 1 week. So it's paced very deliberately. And in that we see a bunch of different stories written by Grant Morrison, Mark Waid, Jeff Johns, and Greg Araka, where we see like Starfire and Adam Strange and Lobo in space. We see, which is awesome, with Animal Man, and like Animal Man like taps into space animals, and he's like, I don't know what I'm tapping into, but it shoots fireballs out of its mouth, so I'm excited. He starts shooting fireballs out of his mouth. This is the story in which Vic Sage, the original Question, gets cancer and passes his legacy on to Renee Montoya. Black Adam tries to be good and creates his own Black Adam family that sort of copies the Marvel family, where he has like a young sidekick and a female sidekick and an animal sidekick. And then Booster Gold goes through this whole thing where he sort of learns to be the hero that he always. It is the best Booster Gold story, without a doubt. It's also the book that introduces Batwoman. I cannot recommend 52 enough. It's collected in 4 trades, 52 issues. I know it's a lot, but I think it's the best single book DC's ever put out. So, my final recommendation of graphic content is read 52.
Okay, I think I've got 2. I don't know if they qualify as not being popular, but I'm gonna say the one that I've said so many times this year, which is Why the Last Man. I think Preacher got its moment in the sunlight, which was my other one of like, read Preacher! But I think Preacher got its moment in the sunlight with the show, and I feel like Why the Last Man hasn't. And although we are talking about the fact that there's been a show in the works, most people aren't. Read this book. It's amazing. It has one of the best comic book endings of all time. I was obsessed with it when I was a kid. I had a stuffed monkey that I named Ampersand.
Nice.
It's so good, and it's so special, and it's so close to my heart. So definitely check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And on a lighter note, and actually a new one dropped today.
Before you go in, I want to say some quick thing about Why the Last Man. If you've heard about the premise being, all the men die and it's a world about women, it's not a world it's not about a world with women. It's about a world in which half of all the people died. It is an apocalypse story because half of all the people died, right? And so all these women have to like rebuild, but it's not like here's how women do it differently. It's like here's how people rebuild the world when half of it just died. So it's brilliant. I've heard mixed things about the ending. I agree with Bronze that I think it's a really fantastic one. I love the ending.
I love the ending.
But yeah, Why the Last Man is what Bronze suggested. What's your other one?
So it's Thanos Imperative, but that one's really well known. But read Thanos Imperative. If you don't read anything else from Cosmic Marvel, read Thanos Imperative, please, for me.
And then after that, read War of Kings, because War of Kings was awesome.
Yeah. If you don't read any, and I know like Thanos Imperative is a big book, it's popular, but even if you read nothing else, read Thanos Imperative. And if you want to know like the start of Richard Rider or not the start, but like old school Richard Rider and old school Guardians before the movies came out, old school Thanos, read Thanos Imperative. And Silver Surfer.
It's on my list.
By Dan Slott. It's amazing. I've been following this for over a year. It's so good. I'm not even a Silver Surfer fan, but now I am. It is so old school, so classic. The art's amazing, and it's the adventures of Norrin Radd as he goes through space with this very common Earth girl, and it's fun. And it's great. If you want a comic that's like the quintessential comic, read this one. It's so much fun. I love it, and I've never been let down by it. I feel like every issue's been really solid, and it's been running. It says number 8, but it's been running since last year.
It did that, Secret Wars interrupted it, so there's 2
Yeah,
runs.
it's just been really solid, and it's really lighthearted, and there's still suspense, and there's still romance, and it's fun. And the art is just so classic.
Mike Allred's the artist. He's so good.
It's just such a classic book, and I love it. So,
look at that. Thanos Imperative is on sale for $4 on Comixology if you like digital comics.
It's worth $4. It's worth $4.
Yeah, Silver Surfer, it also, from what I've heard about it, it's the kind of storytelling that you like. This would not work in any other medium. It's something that only can happen in comics because of how good of an artist Mike Allred is, how he knows how to do it. There's an issue that's a Mobius strip. So like you can read it forwards and backwards and they meet in the middle. I'm so excited to read that issue. Silver Surfer, 52, Why the Last Man. our polls of the year, Thanos Imperative. Graphic content will be ending, but I'm saying this even though I didn't ask about it. The graphic content board on our Discord will almost definitely not be shutting down. I'll probably be in there even more on Wednesdays talking about new comics. We're always down to talk about comics on our Twitter and on Discord.
Scott and I have been talking about projects too.
Yes, we might. You can't stop us
around.
from talking about comics.
Yeah,
basically.
like you can't because we have so much to say.
We'll
about
keep
them.
you all updated. Of course, make sure you tune in January 9th for Open Legend, featuring Bronze and myself and our good old Vanquished family.
Yes.
Thank you all so much for supporting graphic content. It's been an absolute blast.
It's been such a journey watching
It's
our
been so
audience
fun.
grow and watching.
Thank you guys,
like,
and of course,
our
thanks
friendship
to
grow.
yes, thanks of course to QQ who has been behind the board for the entirety of the show. We couldn't do it without you. Shut it down.